Fire for your mind. The Kosher Clinician. Fire for your mind. The Kosher Clinician. Hit that like button and share this stream if you're not a beta male.
Couple of generations.
Yeah, but I actually think the bigger problem is cultural and spiritual. Feminism did change the memes and the culture, but no one talks about when you introduce birth control into a society. All of these declines in the industrial world started at the exact same time that the pill was introduced.
What's going on, y'all? It's been a very, very interesting last 2 weeks. As you could imagine, a whole lot of crazy stuff's been going on in my life, and I wanted to give y'all a couple updates, as well as what today's topic would be, which is they are coming for me. They are coming for your boy. Long story short, I appreciate the love. I appreciate the feedback. I really genuinely took a lot of the feedback in about, the direction I should go in terms of how to approach certain things, in terms of how to communicate to both men and women. But the hate has been crazy. They according to those that dislike what I've had to say so far, apparently I'm a hater of women. Apparently I'm gay. Apparently I have a fake degree and I'm not a real therapist. That's news to me. So you could imagine folks is scouring the internet looking to see how they can shut your boy down and potentially get me to lose all my income. So it's unfortunate that people try to approach things in that way, but that's public life, I guess. Unfortunately, I don't know that they thought about the possibility that I not only intentionally did this, but I intentionally wanted to get those specific reactions.
Did you know that Jezebel's body got eaten by dogs? So she was looking down from her window and Jezebel started to taunt Jehu. Now Jehu was a general who had overthrown and killed her son. Now Jehu ordered her eunuchs, which were upstairs with her, to throw her out of her window. So later, when he commanded that she be properly buried, as a king's daughter, it was then discovered that just like the prophet Elijah had spoken, dogs had eaten most of Jezebel's body. Now, Jezebel's goal was to bring pagan worship to the kingdom of Israel. And Queen Jezebel paid the ultimate price for trying to do that. See, no one can come against the Most High. So she was thrown from a high window, and then her unattended body was devoured by dogs, fulfilling the prediction of the prophet Elijah, who was God's prophet and also Jezebel's nemesis.
Fall comes to us in its own time. Fighters, keepers, losers, we.
When men fail to lead, the children rebel and the women take over.
It's a hard thing to admit, but it's understandable why they would choose to go their own way. And that's what's scary, is there's actually a rational reason why they would do that.
Men going their own way. And you can think what you want about it, but this is a really big problem for women, for us, for our future, for families, for you to find a partner. If a population of good men are walking away because they're fed up with women.
If you're being told all your life that you are bad and wrong just for being a man, and that you have toxic masculinity for being a man,
Cognitive dissonance is a condition that happens for a myriad of reasons. Many times in modern America, men and women often do one of the following. They deny the evidence. They become enraged when you present them with the evidence. They argue do ad hominem attacks, meaning they attack the messenger instead of the message. And they will fight you or flee because they cannot hear what you are saying. A condition such as this, tied into cognitive dissonance, often happens to those that have or lack self-awareness. They stay in a perpetual cycle of arrested development, exhibited by this. Clinician.
Aside to become the kosher clinician, the story and the war cry behind the kosher clinician was similar to some of the struggles and the things that I've been through as a man. And some of you men are still going through that right now. There's a philosophical term called an existentialist crisis. Basically what that means is that you begin to ask yourself the question of why am I existing? What is the purpose of my existence? And I think that's the story of a lot of men that have not been more or less raised or under the tutelage of masculine men. One of the greatest indictments, guys, about the manosphere is that people assert and assume that the manosphere pushes misogyny and hate. But the manosphere is not responsible and was created a silo as the front to women or black women. But the manosphere was responsible to the pain and suffering that many black men were going through and continue to go through as we speak now. Once again, gentlemen, we are going through an existential crisis. Our country is in trouble. Some of you are in trouble mentally, physically, and emotionally. And you're not ready to move to higher ground until you get the requisite help that's going to help you become the better version of yourself.
Real men put the strap down and we can toss them. This is our culture. Now we talking kosher. Clinician.
All right. There it is. All right. Now hit it for me.
And it ain't culture. 7 in hell is what they taught you. We'll put them, and you can back up in young dose. Kosher. Clinician.
All right, stop that. All I want you to say is if it ain't 7, it ain't kosher. Say that first, okay?
All right.
All right, you ready?
Start over?
Yeah, start it.
No. Okay, if it ain't 7, it ain't kosher, and...
If it ain't 7, it ain't culture.
Okay.
Heaven and hell is what they taught you.
Okay, perfect. Do that again, but give me a little attitude. If it ain't 7, it ain't culture.
All right.
Okay, you ready?
Mm-hmm.
And action.
Young heads picking back up in young dolphin. This is our culture. Now we talking kosher. Clinician. That was cool.
If it ain't 7, it ain't culture. Heaven and hell is what they taught you. Real men put the strap down and we can toss them. Young heads picking back up in young dolphins. This is our culture. Now we talking kosher. Clinician, masculinity issues, absent fathers who miss you, mama drama don't kiss you, all a part of the ritual, this is how they get you, separate the men, women, clipping babies pretend to, damn, lovers, haters, acting like vultures, if it ain't 7, it ain't kosher, if it ain't kosher, ain't right, gotta divorce us, if it ain't 7, it ain't kosher, if it ain't kosher, ain't right, gotta divorce us, if it ain't 7, it ain't kosher, if it ain't kosher, ain't right, gotta divorce us. This is kosher condition. 7 wonders, the whole world gotta listen. This is kosher condition. 7 wonders, the whole world gotta listen. This is kosher condition. 7 wonders, the whole world gotta listen. This is kosher condition. 7 wonders, the whole world gotta listen. Listen.
So we about to start it in a minute. Hold tight. Give me 1 minute. And we're about to start, guys. I got my man in the house, Jeff St. James, all the way from the state of Pennsylvania, and also, I believe, from the city of brotherly love. Can you hear me, sir? If you
Yes,
can,
sir. I'm here.
Right.
I'm here.
A pleasure to hear from you, man. You know, forgive me for the delay. Being a therapist and trying to get all this stuff together, man, can be real technical. But there's a spirit permeating, Jeff, in the world, and it appears to have an affront towards heteronormative masculinity. And we're going to use this show more or less to talk about all the different dynamics that are tied to more or less a Marxist agenda that appears to try to usurp the masculine psyche. But also, we're going to talk about who you are, what brings you or more or less brought you into therapy, and why you're so excited about coming into a space in a time when men are actually looking for answers and solutions. So before we start, tell the audience who you are, what you're about, and your specialty, and we'll piggyback on one another and talk about some of the nuances of being a therapist and how, in my opinion, if you're a traditional masculine therapist, it's always through the veneer of toxic masculinity. So I'm gonna let you start, and we can chop it up. Go ahead, brother.
Hey, yeah. One, thank you for welcoming me into your space and your platform.
Yes,
as
sir.
stated, my name is Jeff James. The podcast is Ask a Brother Podcast. And yeah, I've been doing therapy and mental health for over a decade. I've worked in 3 major urban cities. I've been exposed to working in prison settings, schools, and now outpatient, where I am the director over the largest mental health nonprofit in the city of Philadelphia. And you know, as far as what my specializations are, trauma is my main focus. That's my I have a certification in it, and I'm a consultant for prolonged exposure. And obviously, I'm licensed as well. And my job at this point in my career now is really trying to hire and get people licensed and to really offer high quality clinical services to people within the inner city. A lot of times, I think with mental health, we always associate getting the best care in private practice and in the suburbs. My goal is to kind of really bring that in at home to really the city that I'm from and being able to replicate the same high level of care in those settings as well. So yeah, regardless of whether it's people that have experienced violence, whether it's physical violence, violence in the community, relational violence, any type of form of trauma, our goal is just to help people get their lives back on track. But I also do dabble and work with couples, individuals that struggle with depression, anxiety, masculinity issues, and just identity issues as a whole. I do have a special place in my heart for men and boys who feel like in a lot of areas in their life, including trying mental health, they don't feel like they're heard or understood. So, so for whatever reason, I guess I just decided this was the year to kind of bring what I've been seeing and observing and kind of putting it out in the forefront of the public domain and let people think and explore if maybe what I'm saying has some merit to it.
Yeah, I've been in the space, Jeff, for I don't know, I think 4 years. I think I started off in 2021, and I share a little bit about you about myself. I started off in 2021 as the kosher clinician, and I came up with that moniker because I said emphatically that there are 7 steps to male optimization, in my opinion. And in the Hebrew, the 7 means tekavah. The skavah means to be complete. And so in my mind, I came up with 7 elemental principles that I thought would be more or less germane to the efficacy of Black men and men in general. And those 7 steps were faith, family, finances, female psychology, world travel, male mental health, male physical health, and politics. I've always said that if men can circumnavigate those 7 principles, then they become optimized. Once they become optimized, they become kosher. And so I came up with that. If it ain't 7, it ain't kosher. If it ain't kosher, it ain't right. And so, the banner that I have presented before you is called Black Unicorns and Angry Black Men. And you and I indeed are unicorns. You don't find too many Black male therapists, not only in this space, but you don't really see them in the broader society, especially when you look at academia. I will argue, Jeff, that at the higher level, it's mostly white women, then Black women, white men, maybe Latin men, and then or Asian men, and then Black men. We're like probably about 1 or 2%. What's been some of your experiences being a Black male therapist? Some of the microaggressions you've experienced, and what's been some of your struggles to conveying the necessities of men being in therapy?
Yeah, funny enough, one of the things, because I was a part of the cultural considerations team that actually made some adaptations to the prolonged exposure model, which is an evidence-based approach. And the whole time when we were talking about recognizing diversity, recognizing cultural things that we need to factor in, we were factoring in race, we were factoring in where people were from. We were factoring in all disabilities. We were factoring in so many different things.
Right.
And I just had noticed for the last 5 years or so that of all the things that we try to factor in from a cultural perspective, the one that seems to never be brought up is just the idea of being boys or men, and whether or not we need to do cultural adaptations that's specific for that group. And it seems like by default, for whatever reason in the workplace, there seems to be a really, really interesting habit amongst clinicians, psychologists, psychiatrists, etc., where if we're going to skew towards anything, it tends to skew heavily towards the feminine, and towards women's conversational styles, their patterns, their approaches to feeling better therapeutically. It was always typically skewed with what women in general want, as both as far as being the client or the patient, as well as as a clinician as well. So I started to notice it very, very early on. And over time, I started to realize that anytime men, as the client was coming in, if they were starting to notice these things or bringing these things up, they were kind of shut down or not really acknowledged or validated.
Right.
But then on the flip side, if you worked in these spaces as an educator, as a clinician, if you worked in spaces where you pointed out things that you're noticing on the female population side, or even amongst your coworkers, it seemed to be much more of a visceral negative reaction to kind of prevent you from being able to scrutinize and hold women and females to the same standard that you hold males or boys or men.
Right. And I think that, Jeff, a lot of that is tied into a concept that I created. Well, one, it's a schema affliction, but also I think it's something called paranoid persecution. You know, my background, when I was at UNC Chapel Hill, I got certified in cognitive behavioral therapy. And I got the first phase of the Gottman method in Punta Cana. I got my first cert in the Gottman method in Punta Cana more recently, back in December. And what you say really harkens to the reality of what I call the minimization of masculinity. At the training that I was at, one of the things that was key, one of the things that was evident in that conversation was the fact that the instructor that actually admitted that I was correct, everything that was more or less assigned to male issues was more or less truncated as being bad, toxic, ignorant. And he said, yeah, because I noticed, the husband was the bad guy. You made the husband seem like he was bad. He was the enemy. He was the problem. And what you see a lot of times now, I don't know if you saw it in therapy a lot of times, many women, Jeff, they don't send men to therapy or their husbands to therapy because there's really an issue with them, but it's really confirmation bias. So they'll send them to the therapist to confirm whatever pathological issues that they have assigned towards the husband to make the husband be the bad guy. And so many people, in my opinion, and I'm sure you will agree, are trained under the umbrella of wokeness and also Marxism. And because of that, it's created this current zeitgeist or what we call the spirit of this current age, where anything masculine is bad, anything feminine is good. And Jeff, I believe succinctly that it's not just something that's sociological. I think it goes even deeper into esoteric. I think it's also spiritual. And we'll talk about that at some point as we continue to speak. But what's been some of your challenges circumnavigating this toxic maze called toxic femininity, or more or less this feminist agenda that seeks to usurp or minimize male suffering, but also, in my opinion, the sovereignty of masculinity? What's been some of your struggles that you've seen?
Professionally, what I've seen is a noticeable continued decline and lack of male participation in therapy. What I've noticed is the men, not all, but many men who go to therapy, they can only do it very, very short term, or they upon 1 or 2 sessions, they're done. Like they just cannot. They realize this isn't it. This isn't what I'm looking for. This isn't going to help me. And what I was noticing was the conclusions that the clinicians who are used to what you're talking about in terms of the style and approach to how to offer therapy, their conclusions was always putting the onus on the blame on, well, men just don't like to open up. Men don't like to do this. Men don't like therapy. They never turn the microscope or the magnifying glass back on themselves to explore the possibility that it's them, it's their packaging, or it's the field itself that isn't balanced. isn't actually highlighting the needs of men. It's actually highlighting often who's the initiator of a lot of these therapeutic interventions, which usually oftentimes, if it involves a couple, happens to be the woman. So it puts therapists in a very interesting choice dilemma. If the party who tends to be the woman is the one who's initiating the therapy, right? And the guy kind of is half in, half out, not really sure if this is going to work or if he wants it, the therapist is going to get paid listening to one of these people.
Right.
Right. So the therapist seeking to focus and validate more of the needs and concerns of the party who's not really wanting therapy could end up resulting in the person who wanted the therapy in the first place feeling like they're not listening to me. We came in to fix him. And a lot of therapists who aren't really aware of what I'm kind of bringing up and discussing, if the untrained, unskilled, unexperienced therapist will end up picking a side instead of maintaining objectivity and balance.
Yes.
With the end result being that a lot of men feel like if all that's going to happen is I'm going to feel the same thing I'm experiencing at home, and now I'm going to get double teamed in an office, in a counselor's office, why would I even put myself through this? So
I totally agree.
Yeah. So
I totally agree.
definitely noticed that, man. And then number two, even in workplaces, just in general, it seems more often than not that a lot of men are feeling stifled. They feel like they can't actually be themselves. They can't even point out issues, that double standards of things that they're noticing in the workplace.
Right.
It's not unusual for women to make comments about hair, nails, clothes, different articles of clothing that people have. Working around a lot of women, I see sometimes how they interact with each other in terms of raising their voice, getting an attitude, getting snippy with their superiors. These are things that, unfortunately, I don't say unfortunately, just in general, many of the things that are allowed or given grace for, it's seen and pathologized when a man does or says the same exact thing.
I totally agree. Yes, sir.
Those are some of the anecdotal things that I've kind of observed, and most men, a lot of men seem to confirm it as well.
Yeah. And I agree with you 100%, man. And this pathological way of thinking, it makes it very difficult for men. And one of the things I tell men, Jeff, is that sometimes they're the arbiters of their own pain. In behavior modification, you can't have what's called positive reinforcement, where you're more or less, or negative reinforcement, positive reinforcement. And I know there needs to be what's called negative homeostasis instead of positive homeostasis in family systems. And a lot of times what happens with a lot of men, they compromise their power because they assume, Jeff, that if they do what the wife say, then they're going to get their needs met. But what I've seen and known in my lifetime being married for 29 years, but also understanding the nature of women, is that women only respect power and strength. That's all they respect. And when you don't stand on masculine principles, when you don't stand on business, when you're constantly tap dancing and trying to bojangle and whatever, women don't respect that. You be very clear. You be very calm. You be very concise. You say what you mean what you say. And either she's down or she's not down, and you just walk away. But so many men compromise their power, Jeff, because they don't know how much power that they really have. Harriet Tubman was very powerful in her pronouncements, when she said that I could have freed a lot more if they did not already know that they were slaves. But not only that, Frederick Douglass said that power never conceded to anything without a struggle. It never have, and it never will. And so there's a power dynamic, Jeff, that's permeating in the minds of a lot of men, where they have not necessarily seen men like yourself and I that are more or less exemplars of masculinity, but not only exemplars of masculinity, men that are trying to let men know that they, not only do they have power, but they don't have to be subjugated to the emotional whims of the women that they're dealing with. And so therefore, I blame some of the men for some of the pain that they talk about. You can't be the arbiter of your own pain and continue to complain about it. I've seen it many times in couples therapy. There was a gentleman that I was trying to help, and I pointed out his rationalization, which was ego defense mechanisms, and he knew what I was saying was correct, but he felt bad. But instead of fighting the power, fighting through the modern zeitgeist that we have, he didn't fight it. He told me, I decided to forego my last therapy sessions. And, Jeff, you from Philly, I'm from North Carolina. And so one of the things people do, I was trying to take him, Jeff, to Man University, but he wanted to go to SimU. So I was saying, he was going to SimU, Jeff. I was trying to take him to Man U. And he said, after careful consideration, I decided to forego my last therapeutic sessions and go to SimU. So they always go back to SimU because they are slaves to the emotional whims of a woman. I've listened to some of the things, Jeff, you said a couple of times on your podcast. I've listened to you a couple of podcasts, some of the things you said. And I know you were married at one point in the past. What did you learn about your marriage from the past that you brought into the new relationship that would not sabotage you as a masculine man?
Exactly what you said. Number one, establishing early on what you will and won't do, what you will and won't accept, and actually sticking to it. I think a lot of what we're experiencing now is actually the result of what you said about men constantly compromising and orbiting their identity, their role, and their behavior around their women's feelings. And that being the most central important thing in the confines of a relationship. And that's very problematic. Number one, if the most central important factor that's guiding your life, your principles, and the way you move is not the oath, it's not the loyalty, it's not the commitment, it's not the marriage itself, it's your wife or girlfriend's feelings. You can see how that could be extremely problematic. One, feelings don't stay the same. They're not constant. And number two, as you stated earlier, you cannot actually satisfy them long term. It will always feel like a very short-term gratification experience. And an example I gave, and I actually raised it recently with a client of mine, where I asked her what's one of her hobbies, and she mentioned that she really, really loves bags, custom bags and luxury bags. And I said to her, describe to me what was your first bag when you first got that first luxury bag, when you first were able to afford it, like what was it like? And she just described, like, she went back in time and she just said like how amazed she was and how happy she was. She just was taking it with her everywhere. And I said, so you've been collecting bags now for about 20 years? And she said, yeah. And I said, even though you still do it now, do you notice that you don't feel the same exact way you felt that first time? And yet you know, although you still do it now, do you notice that like you don't have the same reaction, you don't have the same emotional reaction response, your dopamine triggers nothing's feeling quite the same as that first time.
Right.
And what I'm arguing is that when you take that concept and apply it to relationships, a lot of times when women say like they'll describe things in terms of what their male counterpart is or isn't doing, and I would argue sometimes that even if he is doing it, you get used to it. It doesn't affect you emotionally the same way. And now you're not only feeling like, well, now we now have to add something new to get that same feeling. Right. But now they're also comparing what they are and aren't experiencing in their regular relationships. They're comparing it to their girlfriends and what they're seeing on social media. So the end result is you've now trapped your male counterpart into a vicious cycle where he's placed you on a pedestal and he's looking up at you and you're looking down at him. Right. One is the adored and one's the adorer. And it turns out that for a lot of women, they actually aren't satisfied and actually aren't happy being on a pedestal because a lot of them want to be in a relationship with the man that they look up to and can be led by.
Right.
Not the man who is constantly trying to chase behind them to keep them happy. So they created the paradigm that they unfortunately aren't actually happy with. And now that's when they start speaking and talking and stating how they've settled and they could do better and their friends are encouraging them to move on. And before you know it, they're looking for all the various forms of confirmation bias to justify why it is that they can see him as primarily being the issue, him being the problem. And that if in the end, regardless of the commitment and promises that they made, they can leave and they'll be justified because in the end, my worldview, my confirmation bias, and everybody around me on social media and in person is basically saying, if there's an issue in this relationship, ultimately he's at fault. And the most central important thing is not the kids, it's not the marriage or my oath for commitment. It is my happiness.
It's your happiness, right? Right. And you know, being a clarion caller, Jeff, what are some of the challenges that you've had to deal with being the clarion caller that you are? I've been to several instances, fake therapists. I've had people, try to mess my license up. And but what are some of the visceral challenges that you've been through, Jeff, trying to circumnavigate this current maze in the West? What's some of the challenges you've dealt with being a director, but also trying to juxtapose being a content creator and doing your current job? What's some of the stresses and the struggles that you dealt with?
The most current thing right now is people putting a heavy scrutiny, putting my credentials and my background under heavy scrutiny when it comes to people. Like, it seems very, very clear that the people who don't like a message, the very first impulse is to attack the messenger.
Yes.
To do ad hominem, right?
Yes, sir.
So the first
Right.
attack was, well, he's not a real therapist. He don't got no masters. Then it went from that to, oh, okay, so it turns out he has a license. Well, he doesn't know what he's talking about. And then then they learn and observe, like, oh, there's different theoretical approaches within counseling and psychology. This isn't just one viewpoint. So yes, psychologists, one can lean more nature, one can lean towards nurture, and one can be a little bit of a hybrid of the two. And they're like, oh, okay, well, you know what? Maybe he's gay. And they're like, oh, okay, so he has a wife. And they're like, well, maybe his wife isn't black. So she's black. Well, she's not black enough. So they're going to keep moving the goalposts to try to invalidate and justify why it is that they're upset with the things that I'm saying. And both just in normal observation and with actually the data that I reference at times, they can go and check these things for themselves. Now, to be fair, these all to a degree do skew towards what data and studies you want to prioritize over others. So there's that. But the overwhelming majority of people who are disagreeing with me, they're usually disagreeing after 30 seconds. They've looked up nothing. And I wouldn't be shocked if a heavy percentage of the people who are the most upset and the most disagreeable with the stuff I'm stating haven't read a book about any of the things I'm talking about in probably a decade.
Right. And you're right. It's cognitive dissonance, Jeff, at its highest. You know, Kevin Samuels talked about sign language, you know, and because I am the kosher clinician, I came up with something called DEAF. And I'm going to play this clip real quick, Jeff, and tell me what you think. Hold tight.
Cognitive dissonance is a condition that happens for a myriad of reasons. Many times in modern America, men and women often do one of the following. They deny the evidence. They become enraged when you present them with the evidence. They argue do ad hominem attacks, meaning they attack the messenger instead of the message. And they will fight you or flee because they cannot hear what you are saying. And conditions such as this, tied into cognitive dissonance, often happens to those that have or lack self-awareness. They stay in a perpetual cycle of arrested development, exhibited by this.
Classic cognitive dissonance. And I've always said, Jeff, there's a cacophony going on inside their head. And that cacophony is called truth. not my truth, not your truth, but the truth. One of the modern zeitgeists, Jeff, now is my truth and your truth and all this. And I don't believe that. I believe there's objective truths and then there are lived truths. But lived truths do not supersede objective truth. The objective truth is that Jeff St. James is a licensed professional counselor. The objective truth is that I'm a LCSW, licensed clinical social worker. The objective truth is that I'm 6'5", and I'm 53 years old, and that Jeff is 35 and he's younger to be my son, and we're both male therapists. That's the objective truth. But people now, because of moral relativism, Jeff, they get encapsulated by these mental machinations where they feel like, you know, my truth, your truth, your truth. And it's foolish. And I've had it to the point, Jeff, you know, there was a couple in therapy. She got mad at me because I was advocating for the pathologies of her husband. She got upset and even went to a black female therapist to see if what I was saying was counterintuitive to what the black female therapist was saying. So it's always what I call this what I call vicarious trauma by proxy, where they feel they want to align themselves with people that have more or less experienced their traumas. And therefore, if you don't align with those vicarious traumas by proxy, therefore you're the issue. And so I show her clips about black women calling out other black women that were LPCs. One was a licensed clinical therapist, and one was just an advocate for men. And she couldn't say anything, or she still struggled to reckon what's going on. This classic permeation of cognitive dissonance, Jeff, I've seen it metastasize at an all-time high to the point many men are angry. What are some of the things you share with couples or just talk with men when they're being more or less gaslit by some of these modern women that don't see things through a more or less rational lens?
Believe it or not, the most helpful way the most effective way that I've seen that a lot of women are able to start to conceptualize and understand that their male counterparts may potentially have their own unique set of challenges and needs that need to be addressed is taking the issue that she's raising and then flipping it and trying to see if she can see as a worldview where I'll give you an example. If a female client were to say, or a woman or wife or was to say something along the lines of, why is sex the most important thing to him? Like, why, like, yeah, we haven't had sex, but there's other things that's more important. And why is that top of the list for, why can't we focus on this, and that? And I say to her, what's the top 2 to 3 things that you think that impacts your ability to connect, to love, or to be distant from your partner? What's the top 3 needs that need to be met? And she lists them off. And for many women, they'll say something in some varying order in terms of emotional closeness, in terms of the ability to just check in and to talk and to feel heard and validated, as well as like maybe quality time or something along those ilks. A lot of times they'll say things along those lines, right? And I'll ask them and say, why are those your top 3? And they'll just say, because if you don't have this, like what do you actually have? And you're not close. You're just 2 strangers that just exist in the same home or in the same. Right. And as they're talking, I'll say, so if he was to say, talk about it, just talking to talk, like feelings, like why is that so important? And when I start holding under scrutiny the things that she's listing off that she's seeing as a really important and essential, and I take the same logic, the same reasoning, the same exact statements that she's using, and then when I start applying it to her criteria of her standards, her boundaries, her needs, her expectations, I'm taking her language and now applying it to the thing that she holds so dearly. And then saying, can you see a world where the idea of somebody telling you that the things that you're saying that are very important are not important, are not essential, that's stupid? What's the point of why is that? Who even cares about that? We can go 6 months without validating your feelings. We can go 6 months without having a conversation. I say, well, that's what it's like when you ignore the needs of your partner. Right. Just because they're different doesn't mean that they're less important. And for a lot of women, if they're actually open, you have to do this long form, drawn out conversation, but you actually very quickly get them oftentimes within the first conversation, first interaction, to start to potentially for the first time have to think about another worldview other than their own or women's in general.
Right.
So you have to, totally agree. It's a thought experiment where you have to let them say what the issue is, identify what it is that they believe is important to them, and then take the same scrutiny that they're having towards their male counterparts or men in general, and then apply it to what they think is important. And that's the first time they're having to come to grips with the cognitive dissonance. They're having to come to grips with, oh, snap, the schema that I've built where everything is catered and centered around me, it turns out that's not going to lead towards a successful relationship. We know this intuitively, but when we're in relationships, we oftentimes take emotional, intellectual shortcuts. So the way you treat your boss or the way you treat your coworkers or the way you treat people out in public is very different than what you tend to do in-house. In-house, you may raise your voice, you may cuss a little more, you may let go of certain safeguards that normally you wouldn't do in other arenas. And the same thing when I asked them real life applications. You work, right? Yeah. How long you been working at the job? 5 years. Have you gotten promoted? Yeah, once. I'm doing pretty well. And I said, and how do you get along with your superiors? And they're like, you're taking their lens, taking their life, taking their actual real world experiences, and literally just contrasting it with what it is that they're doing and how they're acting and showing up in the relationship. And for the women who are genuinely interested, who want to grow and want to change and want the issue to be solved, if they're going to do it, that'll be the moment where they begin to make some concessions and acknowledge, okay, maybe there's more to this than I realize.
Well, many, Jeff, won't make concessions. Many would drag their heels down in their cognitive dissonance. And to the point, women have given me bad reviews, because I just tell them, I said, listen, this ain't the happy therapy and tap dancing therapy. I think, Jeff, that one of the things that have paralyzed a lot of men, and you may agree or disagree, and if you do, that's fine. I don't equivocally believe in, people use the word partner. I don't believe that, and I'm gonna tell you why. I believe in the old school. I'm from the old school. I don't know how old your father is, but your dad might be a couple years older than me.
Mhm.
But this new term partner, I heard it when I was at UNC Chapel Hill, and I'm like, well, what is a partner? Partner. And so you talk about this Marxist ideology that's been permeating, and that Marxist ideology, Jeff, actually came from the egalitarian concept.
Mhm.
So I don't believe in partner because partner, in my opinion, compromises the sovereignty of a man in his home. I believe in a husband and wife dynamic because I tend to see things through the Judeo-Christian worldview. That's how I tend to see things. When you say partner, you're basically saying that she's the same as you. And partner, in my opinion, is tied to the paranoid persecution or the schema affliction that many women have, because that schema is tied to some type of irrational or rational pain or fear that may or may not exist. But when you say husband and wife, there's a clear delineation of who is the power broker in that relationship and who will more or less capitulate or more or less respond to who the leader is. Now, listen, it doesn't mean that if Jeff is the husband, that Jeff don't say, baby, I like your point of view, and we'll just flow with that because I like that. That makes sense. I don't have a problem with that. But when you start saying partner more or less is this separation of power where, she can lead and you can lead and you both consult one another. Whereas with a husband and wife dynamic, you're the husband, she's the wife. It doesn't mean she doesn't have a voice. It doesn't mean that sometimes you don't listen to her, but all roads run through Jeff. Mm. What do you think about that?
That's a great personal preference for you. Right. The issue is not everybody's a Christian, not everyone's religious, and not everyone views what they mean by husband, wife, partner, and the same definitions that you do. So for an example, there's people who believe in we use that term interchangeably because we have the same mutual respect for each other.
Right.
There's people who, I'll give an example. I can use them interchangeably and it won't change anything. The reality is it's actually what's most important is not the particular titles that are used in a particular culture or setting at a given time. It's actually the heart and mindset and approaches to the relationship, regardless of irrespective of where they were born, where they live. So as an example, calling somebody a husband or calling somebody a wife or saying somebody's the head, one man, when they hear husband, leader, head, he sees this as an excuse to be abusive. Another man that calls himself those same things, refers to himself in the same way, sees himself as an opportunity to be a leader, and in a way in which the Christian orthodoxy approaches what it means to be the head of a household, to be sacrificial, to die to self, to be like Christ was for the church, and always be willing to sacrifice on his behalf of his partner. So they can use the same titles and have two totally different mindsets about the application of what that looks like. What's far more important is the heart, the mentality, and the motivating factors for the partner, husband, wife, leader, helpmate, whatever you want to call it. We have people who are faking and pandering in these podcast spaces, calling themselves and pandering and marketing themselves as if they are being super conservative or ultra religious. And then when they get behind closed doors, they're the exact opposite.
Oh yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that 100%. I agree with that, but I'm not like that.
Yeah. Right, so in reality, I'm not. I don't get too lost in the semantics. I want more context when I hear people describe. Listen, if you say he's my husband or she's my wife, and you two are abusing each other or destroying each other emotionally, that title's not saving you. That moniker is not helping you, right? It's actually about the lived experience of what you're doing and what you're applying with that title. So there are individuals who will use these terms interchangeably, and they have a very healthy view and understanding of each other. And for some people, particularly when they're in certain settings where they don't know people and they're not super familiar with people, they feel more comfortable using the term partner. Whereas when it's people that they're more familiar with, friends, family, regular coworkers who they do life with, that's my husband, that's my girlfriend, that's my boyfriend kind of thing. So that's why I'm like, I don't personally get super in the weeds with that type of stuff. Again, the titles are great. They can help with distinction, but usually the people who get caught up the most in those, they're not always as focused on and caught up in the actual actions and behaviors they need to follow.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of truth to what you're saying, and I respectfully agree with what you're saying. I see your position. My only point is, I've listened to a lot of people. I've listened to you, and you talk incessantly about the cultural Marxism that's in therapy. And once again, if you look at Marxism, it's actually tied to egalitarianism. The word partner actually came out of the alphabet community. And you're correct. There are people that wear a facade of being super conservative. What you see with being on screen is what you get in life. I don't tap dance. What you see is what you get. I've always said that unequivocally about my stand on that. And I do agree with you. It can be interchangeable. But the problem, Jeff, that I see once again is the people that more or less adhere to the moniker of partner. It's not always actualized when they come down to the power dynamic in the relationship, where both where the woman is not respecting the husband, whether he called her a partner or wife or whatever. She's constantly challenging his leadership, or she's constantly undermining his leadership. And normally, many times, it's in relationships where they call each other partner. And so, and so it's like I said, this is a more or less a new age terminology, because no one ever said that years ago. And it was loosely tied to the alphabet community in the past. Let me ask you a question, Jeff. Cognitive dissonance and the rise of narcissism. What do you think is the cause of it besides social media? Give me your take on that.
Oh, yeah, there's so many different factors that I think is contributing to a lot of people within the populace displaying narcissistic traits. I wouldn't say that there's been a steep, noticeable, diagnosable condition of people actually fitting the bill and the markers of what it means to be a true narcissist. But narcissistic traits, absolutely. I think for starters, when a whole gender gets marketed to, gets preached to, gets told that a lot of what it takes for humanity to survive is something that's not as important anymore, which is, i.e., becoming a mother and motherhood. You can delay it. It's not that important. You can keep pushing it on further and further. You know what? In fact, the worst thing you can be as a woman is to be a mother and be a stay-at-home wife. Like, why do that? Like, that's created an environment where a huge segment of women are now choosing themselves for very long stretches of their adult life. And they're now, unfortunately, coming to grips with the reality that some of them can't have children anymore. Some of them have delayed things to such a degree that they're going to have high-risk pregnancies. And you can't have 12 to 15 years worth of only having to think and factor in about yourself and thinking that you can just hit this switch. And now when you turn 35, all of a sudden now I'm going to be this thoughtful, caring person when I didn't have to think about anyone else since I was 18. So unfortunately, and then it's your happiness is the most important thing. And let's do divorce parties. And of course, you mentioned social media and not to mention the medical technology in terms of birth control and all these different medical advancements. It's created an environment where on one side, you are functionally allowed to lean heavily into hedonism, into self, into ego, and not have to think about long-term consequences. You're constantly lied to and told that you can have it all at any point when you're ready. And now they're having to come to grips with those realities. So when it comes to, from the female side, I would say those are a lot of the contributing factors. On the male side, I think porn, I think social media, I think the advent of technology to kind of increase the odds and chances of a small percentage of men to have a large optionality of women. It was much harder in the 60s, 70s, and 80s to have access to a large volume of women than it is now for a small pool of men. So now as a result, those men that fit that top 20, top 10% of all the boxes that women are looking for, from a narcissistic, hedonistic perspective, these men are functionally in a position where they are experiencing such a large volume of women sexually that you could take their lifestyle and how many women they've dealt with and compare it to medieval kings and realize that they may have experienced just as many, if not more, women than kings in previous eras of human society, human civilization. So from sex, from porn, from the internet, from all the different messages that's being presented in our dual roles, both sexes are being pitched hedonism. It just looks different.
What would you say when Steve Anderson asked the question? Would you prefer your child to call you daddy or Jeff? I want you to respond to that. And then also, the Pook and Ray Ray show said there are no successful business models where everyone is equal in authority and responsibility. How would you respond to that?
Yeah. So then the first part, I guess daddy, dad, pop, I don't know. Not calling me by my name is cool. I would prefer that. But in terms of the whole successful models, this is the issue, and I'll tie it back to the whole concept of partners, which I brought up before.
Right.
What's actually most important is not the title; it's actually how people live. Yes, it's true from your vantage point and from anecdotally what you've experienced. There tends to be maybe a higher volume of people where they seem to be out of alignment when it comes to how they're acting and how they're treating each other. But the statistics are the statistics. It doesn't matter whether they're Christian, doesn't matter whether they're agnostic. It seems to be there's a high volume in the culture of men and women not understanding what it is they're supposed to be doing and showing up. My particular viewpoint is actually that there isn't a one size fits all approach to relationships. I actually do believe that there's probably 4 to 5 different types of men and 4 or 5 different types of women. And that if you match up what each of these are, you'll be better aligned with the person that connects with you. There are genuinely some men that actually are attracted to, turned on by, and want a woman that's a leader, that she's strong, that she's fierce, that she's dominant. That's his thing. And there's some women that want a man that's younger than her. She wants a man where she has equal say or even more say. And she keeps getting in relationships with men that are challenging that, and she's wondering why she keeps ending up alone and broken. And she's not going to change, and the men she's choosing isn't going to change. Then maybe she needs to choose the man that actually that's going to work with and wants and loves and is attracted to the type of woman she is, and she can do life with the type of man that works well with what she wants. So yeah, I think that there's men that have the option where they're like, I'm never going to date a baby mom. I'm never going to date women who already have children. And then there's other men that's like, that's not a deal breaker for me. I can be a stepdad. Like, that's totally fine. And both people have to identify who they are and identify the types of people that they can actually do life with. What I end up thinking is happening is we're all thinking you're a man, you're a woman, this is what you should be aiming for. And the reality is like, I think that's actually what's causing a lot of the issues in general, where it's like with choice, with religious diversity, with cultural diversity, with age, with children from previous relationships. These are all the aspects of what it means to have life in diversity. And we have to figure out, how do we modify and adapt to the real world and not the one size fits all box that we're trying to push everybody into. I think that even if you look at the biblical scriptures, especially on the Old Testament side, most ancient civilizations, it wasn't uncommon for a man, especially a man of means, to have multiple wives and or concubines. Right. And it wasn't something outright that was banned. It wasn't something outright that was tolerated at a minimum. And at best, it was something that seemed to be a-okay or neutral. Mm-hmm. And now today you're in an enforced monogamous culture that rewards and incentivizes women to get reward packages when they leave marriages. Mm-hmm. So now you're having a pool of women who are getting older, not satisfied, not happy, and they're living in an environment where they're only allowed to be with one man. Men are only allowed to be with one woman, and there's no legal precedence to A, reward men for getting married, but then B, to account for all the other women who are aging out and are getting to a point where they're either going to settle with a man and make him pay for that, or end up dying alone and having to buy cat food the whole time. So right. I'm trying to adapt to the modern culture of what we have. So when MGTOW happens and men go their own way and men aren't getting married anymore, they're adapting to what the market currently is showing them. When women decide that they want to delay certain things, they're adapting to the market of what they're seeing around them. As a clinician, I can put my head into the data, I can look at the stats, but I also have to look at the real world application of what's happening in our country in comparison to other countries that are still more traditional, that would lean a lot more heavily into what you're talking about. The reality is this culture, the family court system, so much that's broken and wrong that is anti-family. You are risking a lot when you give a woman a ring and sign that paper with the state.
I agree.
And I'm going to be honest with men about it. That doesn't mean that I'm going to say that we shouldn't aim for that. What I'm saying is maybe marriage isn't for everybody. And for those that are going to do it, maybe there's different types of women that you're going to work well with and different types of women that's not. And same in the reverse. So I'm pitching that maybe we need to start to think a little more, take the things that we know have worked historically in the past and figure out what would the modern adaptation of this look like in the present day with two clients that are sitting in front of me.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. I think that's fair. My only point of the only thing I would pivot towards that is that I would argue that modernism is what's caused the current issues that we're having now. I would argue that because there's not a clear delineation of what things were in the past is causing that. Am I saying that the family systems were perfect back in the day? No, they weren't. There's nothing new under the sun. There is no perfect family system, but we can argue based on research and data that whether it appeared to be better or it was actually better, then things were different. I'll share something with you, Jeff, and I'm going to clip on the pull up in a minute. My mom just died about 2 months ago. And it was one of the most daunting things ever that happened to me, to lose my mom. And one of the reasons when I was going through grief, one of the reasons I was crying is because I was looking back at nostalgia of how women were in the past. And I was laughing at you on one of your podcasts, and you were talking about the ugly guy. He needs to level up. And we'll talk about that in a minute. But I'll say level up for what? And I'm going to show it to you in a minute, because what my dad got, Jeff, back in the day was a virgin, no kids, and also she was wife ready. That's what my grandmother was. And so was my sister. I understand it's a different world now. I understand it's a world that's been more or less influenced by first wave, second wave, third wave, and fourth wave feminism. I understand all that. But I will also argue that some of the modern issues that we're having now is a response to the current zeitgeist, where people more or less try to alter traditional mores to more or less appease some of the foolishness that we have now. And because of that, things have begun to precipitously get worse. I don't know if you saw it more recently in the news. Birth rates are declining. This is the first time in human history where birth rates are at an all-time low. Men are checking out. Men are becoming indifferent. They say they don't care. And guess what? I don't blame them. I've been with my wife for 29 years. If I was single again, Jeff, I would probably not marry an American woman. I'm not saying that there's not some loose women in the West that are decent women that could be good wives. I'm not saying that. But knowing how I was raised and how I saw my grandmom and all of them, and not saying their relationships were perfect, but for what I want as a masculine man, I would never tolerate the crap men tolerate now. I'm not going to be in a relationship where I got to schedule intimacy and I got to tap dance and, I'm not doing that. Either you can respect me as a man, you can respect my leadership, and I'm going to love you as a husband. I'll die for you. I'm not going to more or less reduce your autonomy or the intrinsic gifts that the Creator has bestowed upon you. But if we can't come to some level of cohesion, Jeff, then I will bid you fair due. And I think that was one of the things that Kevin Samuels tried to do. Kevin Samuels was more or less a proponent of trying to bring black love back into fruition. But Kevin Samuels realized that, the juice ain't worth the squeeze. Right before he died, Kevin Samuels started advocating for passport bros. I don't know if you knew about that, but he was beginning to pontificate, men go where you're celebrated instead of being tolerated, because in those cultures that are more or less not like the current milieu you and I see now, those cultures tend to more or less adhere to traditional norms and mores that I'm used to in the rural South and other men are used to. Men by nature want a woman that can look up to him. Like you were saying, I agree with you 100%. There's an evolutionary psychology, even though I look at evolutionary psychology from a limited basis. But let's say if it's 100% true science, or it has some scientific relevance, or it's tied into, it's hybridized, whereas there's some myths associated and then there's hardcore evidence. But for the sake of argument, you're right. A woman wants a man that she can look up to. That's why women tend to like tall men. I'm 6'5", 6'6". They want a man that's tall, that's masculine. He say what he mean what he says, and he stands on business. It doesn't mean that shorter men can't get women. There's short men that are masculine and dominant too. But it's something in a woman's hardwired, Jeff, in my opinion, when she loves looking up to a man. You appear to be about what, 6'1", 5'11"? 6 feet, right? And you're slim. And in your experiences, would you say that most women wanted men of your height or taller from what you've experienced?
Majority want a guy that ideally is taller. But what I'm factoring in is both. I'm factoring in what the majority wants and what the minority wants as well, and stating that regardless of which bucket you land in, you have to aim for that. So if you're the exception to the rule as a man that actually wants a woman that's taller than you, that's a very, very small pool of men that want that. But there are women that are totally these WNBA players. They all not gay.
Yeah, right.
Women at 6'4", 6'5", 6'6".
Right.
A lot of them are ending up with men. So they have to get with a guy that actually wants that. And I'm accounting for those examples as well.
No doubt. Shout out to my man Ray Johnson for that $25 cash out. Jeff, I want to show you something, man. And cognitive dissonance. I created a term, Jeff, called the Medusa complex. And this is a little clip I did in the past. And the Medusa complex happens, Jeff, where women can't look at themselves, men or women, but they struggle with looking at themselves. If they looked at themselves, Jeff, they will crack under pressure because they don't like what they see in the mirror. How would you respond to that under the concept of the Medusa complex?
I think we've been trained, especially over the last 15, 20 years or so, to not have to do that. It's easier than ever to get a divorce. It's easier than ever to feel in terms of unlimited optionality, which is an illusion based off of social media and dating apps. We've been trained to see people as expendable, easily replaceable. And we've come up with all these terms on the female side, or particularly on social media, all these women describing all their exes as narcissists. How is every person that you disagree with now a narcissist? And what's the irony that it's only the people you disagree with that are the narcissists that only think for themselves and not the other way around? We've been in an environment that kind of fuels and feeds into that.
Oh yeah, I totally agree. Level up for what? We're gonna talk about that, Jeff. Hold tight, guys. Do me a favor, hit the like button. Share the content, share the stream. Go subscribe to Ask a Brother Podcast, and we go as we continue this conversation. So, guys, hit the like button and get the likes up.
What's going on, y'all? It's been a very, very interesting last 2 weeks.
All right, Jeff, level up for what? There was a song jump back in the day, say, turn down for what? Modern men are saying level up for what? I don't know if you're familiar, Jeff, with this T-app thing.
Oh, yeah. I got some thoughts about it.
Okay, well, you can use this or whatever on your own, but let's look at this real quick, because a lot of guys, Jeff, are saying, why would I level up? Why am I going to level up in a country that a man can lose half of what he got? And in countries where men do level up or they leave with their money, they don't get the outcomes once the money is gone. Or in a country, Jeff, where women have become so promiscuous, the men are saying, what am I getting in return? So tell me what you think about this real quick. Hold tight.
Y'all get online with these high standards that you don't have in real life, which is what I always say. You can't believe what they're saying. You got to watch what they're doing. They can tell you all day what they won't do, but that app is showing you what they will do. Y'all are showing just how low vibrational the men that y'all have to pick from are. You can't sit up and say that you got all these options yet. These are the men that you're picking. The truth is, that's all you got to pick from. You have a bunch of group of nasty, terrible men to choose from, and you're just trying to find the best out of the worst. But all of them are horrible. Everything that you have to choose from is horrible because of how you are as a woman. You carry yourself in a way that there's a very specific type of man who would find you attractive. And that small group of men is who y'all are choosing from. And that's why y'all are sharing the same men. Because out of that small group of men that y'all are all picking from, y'all are trying to find the best looking one, the one who appear to seem like he got some money, even though he usually don't end up having no money. Y'all are all picking and filtering through that small group of disgusting, nasty pookies, right? And no matter what you get online and say about how you want rich men, you ain't even in proximity to rich men. Rich men don't even see you on their radar when you walk by, right? Because nothing about who you are and how you carry yourself would pick up on the radar of a man who got any class about himself, right? Only pookies find you desirable. And that's the reason why y'all are all sharing the same pookies. That's the reason why y'all all sharing the same pookies. It don't matter what y'all get on that app and expose regarding these men, how terrible they done treated you, what STDs they done gave you, how many babies they done had and left. There still will be a line of women ready to give that man a shot to see whether or not she can get better results than you got. So you can never really expose men, because there's always going to be women who are willing to test it out for themselves and still see whether or not the stuff the previous women said is actually true.
All right, Jeff, what do you think about that, brother? Go ahead. Leveling up for what? What's your take on that?
So leveling up, for starters, I definitely wish I had fleshed it out more. You're not leveling up with the end goal being women at the finish line. Right. First of all, you're leveling up for self. And when I say leveling up, this includes financially, this includes with your body, this includes with your mental health. This is aiming to max out on all the areas of life that you have control over to try to improve. A man is somebody who's constantly trying to improve. When I look at it from a career perspective, you getting the certifications, you getting the training, you getting degrees is quote unquote leveling up. The goal is not so that you can take the worst job possible. The goal is leveling up and getting those credentials, getting that experience, and putting yourself in a position of leverage where you actually can choose from the best options, both here and abroad. So the individual who doesn't try to level up, they now have a scarcity mindset where they either now have to accept bad behavior, they have to accept the mediocrity within the women, that the pool of women that they can choose from, or they have to accept the worst versions of what women have to offer versus choosing from the best. But so for me, when I think about it, it's like from a career perspective, if I do what I need to do in my career and put myself in a position, now I'm going to have 3 6-figure opportunities to choose from versus accepting the first job that's offering me 40,000. But if I put the work in, now I can choose from the best options. Now I get to dictate and decide on my terms how I want to do this and how I want to integrate what this work is into my life, and if it's actually a benefit for me. A lot of men that don't level up are the same ones that's complaining about the market and the quality of women that's available. Fascinating how when you level up, a lot of these problems are no longer your issues. It's the issues of the men who haven't done the work yet. So if you put yourself in the right position, you'll be exposed to people that own yachts. You'll be exposed to people who are making massive business deals on golf courses. You'll be invited to box seats at places. You'll get free tickets to stuff. Shocking how when you level up in all these other areas, all these doors starts to open, and that includes with women as well. So my view is if you level up and do what you're supposed to do, you're no longer worried and complaining about the women in the country, because your pool of options is no longer limited to the women in the country or even the women in your specific zip code. Leveling up is first about looking at where you're not measuring up to where your potential is as a man, prioritizing that and that being your purpose. And then the benefits of leveling up is the increased networking, the increased opportunities with various different types of women globally from all over the world, and the increased access to all types of opportunities, engagements, parties, etc. as a result of basically, as a woman, when these women haven't gone to finishing school, when they haven't done Jack and Jill, and they haven't grown up in a strict environment where they had some type of protective mechanism, i.e. a parent, a father, a mother, a grandmother, somebody who taught them about how to present yourself, how to conduct yourself. These women are going out there and trying to learn by trial and error. When it comes to men, if you haven't been put on game and you haven't put the work in, you, just like these women, they're now at the mercy of whatever men it is that they run into. And it's the same thing with the men who quote unquote haven't leveled up. You're complaining. If you haven't leveled up, why are you complaining about all these women who are on EBT and got 5 baby daddies that's coming to you, who's even coming at you in that way? How are you even in the same environment and space with these women? Because you haven't leveled up. So a lot of times, and you haven't put the work in. So the reality is there are still good women in various states and regions. There are still good women globally. But if you haven't leveled up and put yourself in a position to have access to those women and get to choose on what terms you want to be able to have access to them on, a lot of these dudes that are complaining are the very men that haven't done this. The goal is not to get women. The women are a byproduct of the work that you put in, along with the other benefits in the other areas. So yeah, so that's actually what I mean by leveling up. And again, there's some people who are panderers and saying, if you do this, then you get the women. the reality is, if you do that and you don't learn to level up and mature in all the areas you need to, now they see you as just a rich simp. Now they just see you as a guy to take advantage of. So you have to gain wisdom as you're building yourself up. You need to hang around men and be at such a place. The man who owns a strip club doesn't get excited about the naked strippers in front of him.
I agree with that.
Right?
I agree with that. That's true.
So the man who levels up and is now used to being in certain places, in certain rooms, around certain people, he's going to get used to being around very beautiful women. He's going to get used to people who are in certain different higher level of tax brackets. He's going to get used to being in helicopters, if you do that work, so many of the things that you're complaining about, no, that's broke people's complaints. That's there. Jeff Bezos isn't running around complaining about his ex-wife. You know, like a lot of the people that you're thinking about, even when they go through the worst experiences, there's a reason why you don't hear them really going off. They move on. They don't have a scarcity mindset with women. They will be fine. They are more than fine.
Right.
Our job as men is to put ourselves in position to where we stop having that scarcity mindset when it comes to what it is we're looking for. If you're looking for someone that's beautiful, that's easy to find. If you're looking, and again, if you're looking for someone that's beautiful but also respects you, that's very easy to find. If you're worth respecting, if you've developed a respectable lifestyle that both men value and respect you, and women love and adore you, it's not hard for that to happen. Now, when you walk in the room, you will stand out. I can go in the hood with exactly what I'm wearing, and I get the same exact results as if I'm in a walking into a Fortune 500 company. The same exact response. Now, what is it about that? Because I do know plenty of guys that wear a suit jacket and a blazer, and they go in the hood and they're being called names and everything. What is it about? What if I had to learn in both of these spaces to where I can get the same type of results no matter what? That's the goal of a well-rounded, mature man that's recentering his purpose, not around a woman, not around sex, but around self-improvement and his purpose of what it means to do this thing called being a man in this life.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of truth to what you said. My only pushback, and you're right, I do agree with that. I love how you added nuance to what you were saying about a man's number one modus operandi is not to level up for the sake of a woman. I agree with that 100%. But let's say I'm the contrarian. Let's say Paul Pierce, for example. Paul Pierce is a rich man. There are other rich athletes. And you know, you're right, Jeff Bezos was the same. But I would still say, Jeff, by and large, is there a percentage of decent women from different socioeconomic backgrounds, from different regions of the United States? Yes, I do agree with you. There's a percentage. But I would argue, Jeff, that I don't think it's a large percentage. I think it's a sizable percentage, but I don't think it's large. And I think, Jeff, because of that, men have begun to say, you know what, I'm not going to keep wasting my time on fairy tales and butterflies and unicorns. I'm going to gird myself up. I'm going to gird my mind. And I'm going to find women from traditional cultures that honor and respect me. They have a worldview that was similar to the worldview that my ancestors had. And I'm going to build my community and cast my tent with those women. But now, Jeff, with the rise of narcissism, and also, like the young lady said a minute ago, you know, these women doing all this nasty stuff and wanting to put tea on men. But a lot of guys are saying, you know what? What am I selling for? I don't think that Jeff St. James, being the brilliant young man that you are, well, one of woman's been with 100 men. I don't think you would. I know I wouldn't. I don't think you would. And so what a lot of men are saying, why would I settle for that when I can go to countries where the women have been trained to be wives, been respected to be wives, and I give my resources, my time, my money, and my attention to those type of women? How would you respond to that?
Yeah, if you've leveled up, then you can literally have the option to do what it is that you're saying. Funny how when you don't level up, all you can do is complain about the women around you. That's how it works.
Have you seen a situation, Jeff, where men have leveled up, they've done the work? Because a lot of guys said that, you know, like I know guys in circles that they've done well, they're successful, like yourself and I, and they still say they've leveled up, but the quality is still low, or it's hard to find the kind of women that they want. How would you respond to that?
There's more than one pool to draw from. Okay. A lot of people keep focusing on the one pool that they think is the dirtiest and the most contaminated and saying none of the fish are good here. Go to a different pool. Go to a different lake. right?
Fair enough, right.
A lot of men don't have the opportunity to do that because they haven't leveled up in all the areas that they have. And number two, even in the areas where everybody say, don't date a woman from the city, don't date a woman from Philly, don't date a woman from Baltimore, don't date a woman from Miami, don't do this, don't do that. Fine. But if you haven't put yourself in a position to date women from other areas or other regions, that's the issue. Mm-hmm. My stance is, unless you want to be a genetic dead end, in every era of human civilization, there were hardships, there were challenges that men had to overcome and figure out. Starvation, climate issues, war, you name it. Again and again and again, the men of a generation have to adjust and figure out, how do I navigate the terrains of what's currently going on in my particular civilization or society? This is the first generation that I can recall where, when things get hard, rather than figuring out how to adapt, be smart, and still reap the benefits just in a different way, they say, I don't like this game that's in my neighborhood or in my city, so I quit. Okay, if every man thought the way some of these men are thinking, the human civilization, if the birth rates are declining as they are, do you want to be a reason for why the birth rates are going to rebound and grow again? Or are you one of the many men that's contributing to why the birth rates are declining and the decline of the human civilization as we know it? Either you're a quitter or you're an adapter. Either you're victorious or you see yourself as a victim. So as a man like myself, who's gone through the relationships that I've been through, I used to have that victim mentality when a relationship didn't work. Mm-hmm. I operated out of the scarcity mindset. I thought life was over. I was angry at God. I was angry at myself. I was angry at people, and I was angry with the world, and I just wanted to quit. Right. Instead, I went to a therapist. I went to a minister. I went to a professional therapist. I put the work in. I went back to the gym. I focused on my mental. I leveled up on my money. I started dating again. And instead, I hit that switch of scarcity mindset. Got to always impress the woman in front of me and try to make her see that I'm so, no. I need to put myself in a position where I already know who I am and what I bring to the table. Right. Now, I'm not trying to audition for you. You're auditioning for me. Mm-hmm. And I come up front and would say, hey, I appreciate you hanging out with me and going out with me. But just to let you know up front, I am dating quite a few women. Mm-hmm. And, hopefully by the end of this, we'll see, if this is a good fit. Right. The wife that I'm with now, people can run and ask her themselves. Mm-hmm. Did he say that to you? Yes, I did. Mm-hmm. She asked me straight out, what do you think about these passport bros? Would you have been one? Yes, I would have been one.
No doubt.
Right. So it's amazing how when I mention that there's other women and that I'm open to passport bros if things don't work out here, she didn't leave. Mm-hmm. Oh, honesty, confidence, charisma. Mm-hmm. Oh, the things that you need, being yourself. Turns out when you do that, you get better results.
I agree with that. I agree with that fundamentally, no doubt. I agree with you 100%. I agree with that.
I don't want to forget this part.
Right.
She's credentialed higher than I am professionally, academically. Mm-hmm. She's a doctor.
Wow.
Now let me get this straight. A HBCU grad, doctor, doing very well, that still respects me and sees me as a man and husband.
No doubt. No doubt.
Wait a minute. That's not supposed to happen. That's not allowed. Right. It turns out the rules don't apply to the men who've leveled up because you've figured out how to adapt to the market. And again, if you've done the work, you don't have to choose from just the women around you. You can go anywhere in the planet to find what it is that you're looking for.
Right, I agree with that.
The leveling up process is just to help you to be able to do that.
Yeah. It's more or less like you're using different tools to expand the amount of fish that you can catch.
In your 7 points of masculinity, the man who's hitting 9 out of 10 in each of those areas, the world is his oyster.
It's his oyster. I agree with that.
Do what he wants. Like those men that are in that bracket, in that realm, in all those areas, nobody's saying you got to be a bodybuilder. Nobody's saying that. What we are saying is even in the areas where you can't level up with your height, you can make up for it in other ways. If your goal is being exceptional, if your goal is being distinct, if your goal is excellence, you will reap the benefits of that. A lot of y'all quit after the first workout and then are shocked when you're lazy and you're tired all the time. A lot of y'all don't want to put the work in the areas that that kosher clinician is stating and other men are saying, and then you're also complaining on the flip end. I don't have a scarcity mindset with women.
Right. I think I love that, man. I think what you're saying is profoundly true. But there are still, Jeff, barriers, and Theo himself is I'm going to say probably close to a millionaire. He's 500. I don't know how many. Well, he's an IT manager, or he's one of the supervisors at the Manosphere. And he said, I guess you guys are both saying the same thing, because you're not saying to cast your net exclusive to America.
Right.
You did say you would have been a passport bro. So let me be real clear. Jeff is not saying limit yourself to America and the laws in America. What he's saying is that focus on yourself first, level up, recalibrate your mind, recalibrate your thinking, look at all the cognitive distortions and all the issues that you're struggling with. Because one of the things, Jeff, I love about you, man, how you do. Jeff promotes his business like he's confident. And I'm going to start doing this. I mean, I have done, I just don't have the time. But, one of the things I see, Jeff, and a lot of men, they want your advice, they want my advice, they want licensed professional advices, but they don't want to pay for it. they don't want to pay for it. They want to give you, pennies, and or they want, I heard some guys ask me, they said, do I take insurance? And I found that as an insult for a consultation. Jeff, I pay Jeff for his time, and rightfully so. And if I go on Jeff's channel, I might charge him too. And I hope, he'll be okay with that. Because if you minimize your brilliance, if you minimize your confidence, if you minimize all your accomplishments, part of the leveling up process is confidence, having that je ne sais quoi. And one thing I like what Lee Attorney said one time. Lee Attorney said that if you lower the bar to what you expect, because he was doing his consultations low and not expecting much. And I understand, Jeff, we're in a very bad time. But guess what? I didn't mind investing in what your asking price was, because I like your work. I like what you were doing. And I didn't say, well, I'm a therapist. He's a therapist. I'm not going to pay him for that. I said, no, I'm going to pay the young blood, because, I like what you're doing. I like your talking points. And I would agree that we agree with a majority of what I agree with majority of the things that you're talking about. There might be some points here and there I don't necessarily agree with, but I do respect your position. And so part of the leveling up process is knowing what your worth is. Where did you go through that evolutionary process, Jeff, when you begin to know what your worth is, start getting the outcomes that you want? Because that is phenomenal that you got the wife that you've gotten. But also your critics will say, Jeff, what do you do when she gets to the point where she says, I'm not happy, and then she wants a divorce?
30 was when the switch went off for me. And it wasn't that I had issues or with approaching women or getting access to women. When I was younger, from my early 20s, I was getting numbers. I was out there. I was outside, right? Mm-hmm. What I learned coming back out there and being single again was I actually recognized the rampant entitlement. I recognized very early some of the things that everybody was complaining about. I'm seeing it now, and I'm like, whoa. But the difference was at 30, I now saw where I was and where I was going. And I was viewing the women around me and realizing very quickly, I don't think that all of them realize that my level of optionality is not quite what they think it is in terms of the average man. I'm not a model. I'm not an athlete anymore. I'm not a professional athlete. I'm not a high profile lawyer or somebody that's really well known in demand. But at 30 years old, knowing that in the next 5 years, I'm probably going to increase my annual salary by 50 to 70,000 more than what I'm making now. Mm-hmm. I know this. Mm-hmm. So now I'm choosing to move as if I'm already there. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. The man who moves as if he's already there, right, will start approaching relationships, not just with women, in general. Mm-hmm. Certain places you don't go to no more. Certain people, in order for them to meet you, they got to come here to meet me here. Mm-hmm. So now, if I'm going to put time, energy, and resources into that, it's got to make sense. Mm-hmm. Now, things that I would have done at 20 when I'm not doing at 31. So even if I haven't arrived yet, I'm already mentally there, and I'm starting to respond accordingly. Now, when it comes to what you mentioned about my wife, if she starts to, I'm not happy. We've been through that.
Oh, wow. Talk about it. Talk about it.
Well, not to get into the super weeds.
Right.
Like any relationship, you have your ups and downs. You have one moment you're happy, one moment you're not happy. What I've learned is what I'm willing to reward and not reward. So what I'm willing to, sometimes I'll sit on something and wait to make sure that when I finally do communicate what it is that I want to communicate, I've thought it through. I've said it once, and I've given her time to be able to feel, emote, react how she sees fit, and not assume that the time that I took to think about it, reflect on it, and put it out there, she now needs to be ready of how she's going to respond and handle it well right after I said it. It took me a week to say something about it. It's going to I'm going to give her a few days or a week to circle back and connect with me about it. And then number two, the same strategy I mentioned at the beginning. If I start taking real world concepts of the standards that she has for me, in terms of how I act, how I conduct myself, and the things that I say, and if I start giving that example of, well, when I've done this in the past or I dropped the ball, this typically was your response. And if I'm choosing not to respond in the way you've responded in the past, which was worse, then would you think that it's fair to acknowledge that maybe this is something that maybe was a blind spot that you need to reevaluate? Now, again, we're both therapists, so she knows that she knows it's not that I'm always right, but she knows that I've thought these things through. She knows
yes,
I'm not
sir. Right.
And number two, it's like, and this is the last piece. Her happiness is not the most important thing to me.
Yes, I totally agree.
That doesn't mean I don't respect her. That doesn't mean I don't value her.
Right.
We both are understanding that neither her happiness or my own is the most central important thing in this thing we call a marriage.
Yes, sir.
And
I agree.
She knows that as a woman in America, she can leave at any point in time if she chooses to.
Yes.
That is her choice and her right.
I agree.
The men who grovel, the men who place women on pedestals, they're always fearful that if I don't centralize her happiness, she'll leave. If you'll leave because I refuse to keep your happiness as the central most important thing, you're not somebody who needs to stay married to me or stay in my life.
I totally agree.
We're both fully aware of that.
Right.
So if you maintain frame, you establish what the foundation should be up front. As these things pop up, if you stick to what you set the tone to be, shocking that you'll be fine when she's upset. You'll be fine when she's happy.
Right.
Like a lot of times this stuff isn't what it is I think a lot of times we as men, we set the tone and establish building a foundation on something that's already shaky, that's not solid. And then when we're building and adding kids and adding life and adding expenses to this thing, and the foundation wasn't established from the beginning, we now have to deal with the consequences of a shaky, insecure, unsupported foundation. And we're trying to build a whole life and relationship on something that we didn't set the tone and establish from the beginning.
But you know what? You are refined. You are refined in many ways. You know, you've been in school, you're polished. I'm going to assume you grew up with a strong father, and you dated and had your share of women. Every man don't have that opportunity, and I always tell guys they have gotten there. Let's say if you're one of the apex guys like myself, I consider you're in the apex. You're an apex brother. Sometimes we tend to equivocate our own experiences and try to truncate that to the average guy, and sometimes they'll never get the experiences that Jeff St. James got. And so hear me. I'm not saying that they can't subscribe for it, but you are 6 feet. You know, you're well spoken. You know, you're tall, and you know you're well educated like myself. But everybody might not ever get the experience that you got, even though they have put in the work. And so, what would you say about that? Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Number one, I wasn't always educated. Number two, I wasn't always well spoken. Number three, I wasn't always 6 feet. And number four, I actually grew up with my parents separated when I was 13 years old.
Okay.
And my dad, who'll be the first one to acknowledge, he was a rampant womanizer. And how I learned many of the strategies and techniques and things I have to constantly check in within myself was things that I was seeing at 8, 9, and 11 years old. Right. All the excuses that people could use to say why the things that I'm saying aren't going to work, I phrase it this way. Every wealthy, well-off businessman that's shorter, uglier, not as well spoken as I am, got a beautiful woman by their side if they want one. So it turns out that whatever the hand that you've been dealt, how do you maximize that? How do you maximize the 5'7" frame that you do got? How do you maximize the skills and trades that you do have? How do you maximize the friendships and relationships and networking opportunities that you do have? What's happening is that as men are aging, they're forgetting that the same thing that would work in the financial realm will work in other areas. Okay, I'll give you an example. A man wants to go out to a really nice lounge or club area on vacation or something, and he has trouble and difficulty with getting access to women for whatever reason. Like he's not confident. He's always, just not sure what to do. I have no problem with men paying for female companionship just to go out publicly with him to these events. When you go to these special events, get one or two of the most beautiful women that you can find and hire them for the evening to be your company and see what happens with the other women that's going to gravitate towards you.
Yeah, I see that. Yeah, I like that.
Wait a minute. Yeah. Him looking good suddenly not as much. You know what? Women are
I like that. That's bait. I like that. Yeah, I like that.
What? How did he get them? What has he got? Hold on, wait a minute. So all of a sudden, they're doing the marketing and advertising for you. And you didn't have to say anything.
Right. I see your point.
Strategy number one. Strategy number two. A lot of y'all that's complaining don't want to ever change up anything about. So when Kevin Samuels talked about cutting your hair, getting groomed, I'm not doing this or I'm not doing that. I've grown. I grew my hair, my locks for 9 years. I cut them off about a year or so before I got engaged and got married. So my almost my entire adulthood, I grew my hair. I had locks all the way down to my tailbone.
Oh, really? I would never imagine you like that, man.
Right. So that wasn't that long ago. So right after 30, I ended up cutting my locks off. About 2-3 years after 30, I cut my locks off. And shockingly, as polished as I was, as professional I was, I started getting even more opportunities than I was before.
That's true.
I changed and adapted with small little tweaks. Now I tend to go to work now more with a blazer than just a shirt. Now I'm doing more button-ups and blazers, and I'm getting some. I'm like, so wait a minute. Even a guy that's not the most handsome guy, not the most fit guy, if he cares a little bit more about his grooming, about his aesthetic, about being around women who he's not even trying to sleep with, so he can get familiar with just being around women, all of a sudden, a lot of the excuses suddenly aren't as big of excuses. Right. There was a time when I was nervous about approaching women. There was a time when I was the guy who wasn't making all this money, or making a decent amount of money. And like you said about the standard, if you mentally set this is what it's going to be, and you start making your life look like what it is that you're moving towards, and you start acting accordingly, if you want to get on my schedule, and this was before I went viral, before any of you even knew who I was, I already had a set rate for therapy. It was already $150 an hour. That was just what it was standard. I saw my value. I saw how few men actually qualified and lived up to that value as being a licensed professional therapist in the state of Pennsylvania, who people actually like and men are willing to listen to. I already knew what my value was. That was my standard. So, and I've done conferences, I've done engagements, I've done panel discussions with congressmen and people from city councilmen. I was already doing this stuff before y'all even heard of me. So now when somebody says, Jeff, we want to fly you out, or we want you to come to do an engagement for us at our podcast. And I'm like, all right, it requires travel, me missing work. I can't see clients that day.
Right. I agree.
500 to 1,000 or 1,500.
Yes, sir. I totally agree. Yes, sir.
It's the beauty.
I agree. I agree with you, Jeff. I agree with you.
Don't want to do it.
Yes. Yeah. And you know what, Jeff, I'm so glad you said that, brother. You're 100% correct. I agree with you 1,000,000%. Because that's where I'm at now. This is my second year in my private practice. My money's gone up. I charge $150 an hour for individualized, charge $200 an hour for couples. If you want me, but a lot of times, Jeff, people want you to do it for free. they want to pay you anything. They want Negro discounts. But Orion Terror Band charging $1,000. Shout out to Kevin Samuels. Kevin Samuels is charging $1,000, and I ain't mad at it.
Way more
than that, right? And but somehow, Jeff, you and I, people want you to come and do conferences for them and speak for them, but they don't want to pay you, or if they do pay you, they're not paying you what you're worth. What I allowed maybe 2 years ago, you got to pay me now. Because once you know what your worth is, once you know that you do have a voice, like you said, I agree with you 100%. Once you realize that there are men that want to listen, and you keep limiting yourself to people that want to give you, 2 cents or 5 cents, I can't find it. You're just not worth my time. I will no longer minimize what my worth is trying to be the good guy. If you want my mind, if you want my expertise, if you want my wisdom and the things that I bring to the space and also to other men, you're going to pay me like you pay other professional, educated men, but also other content creators. I love what you said. I love your honesty, because what Jeff St. James is saying is true. And guess what? I didn't mind paying the brother, because he's a smart, brilliant young man. No, honestly, I didn't, because I thought it was fair. It was a fair rate. It was very fair. Now, if you had told me $1,500, I said, no, I ain't doing that. Yeah, I ain't paying you no 15, but I didn't mind. Yeah, but I didn't mind paying you what you asked for, because you deserve it. And you're right about the locks. Let me show you a clip real quick, Jeff.
Before I forget, to make sure with everything you just said, now reimagine applying that to women.
I agree. I like that.
Now, so now every woman who you ask out, you won't end up going out with. Not every woman who approaches you is worth even interacting with. Right. Now you have standards.
I like that.
Shocking.
That's true. Right.
Shocking. That's how it works.
I love that. Right. It's almost like manifesting. I'm not the manifesting witchcraft, but write those things which aren't as they are, and start visualizing what you plan to see in the future. The scripture said, Jeff, write the vision, make it plain. Let me show you something, Jeff. You're right, and I used to have locks too. You're gonna laugh at this, but this is when I was in college. Hold tight.
Shut up, kosher. Yeah. Shut up. Whoa. Shut up, kosher. Ballin'. Take it back. Like it's game time. Game time. Locked in when it's game time. Yeah, I'm ballin'. Like it's game time. Locked in when it's game time. I put in work, couldn't wait for my bag coming. 3 whole years and these records keep running. Don't talk to me if you can't match the numbers. Ballin', like it's game time. Locked in when it's game time. Yeah, I'm ballin', like it's game time. Locked in when it's game time. I put in work, couldn't wait for mine.
So yeah, I used to have locks. I don't know if you saw them, but I used to have locks back in the day when I was in college at North Carolina Central. And guess what? I didn't want to cut my locks. But when I went bald, as you can see, I've had customers tell me, man, they said, man, I made you my therapist because I like the swag, man. They said that I got this from Brooklyn, man. I was in Harlem, actually in Harlem. I've gotten clients, Jeff, by just changing my hats, man. They're changing my hat, Jeff. I pay about $250 for this hat, man. But changing hats, man. Like you were saying, I agree with you, man. Start giving me a whole different clientele. Well, shout out to my man Ty Cutler. He's out in Brooklyn, and actually, y'all check him out if you ever need to. He's an image consultant too. But yeah,
so I can let him know that you referred me.
Say it again.
Text me his info so I can let him know.
Oh yeah, no doubt. Yeah, I give you my man Ty info. Yeah. Me Ty's from Brooklyn, man. And I'll definitely let you know. But he actually said if you listen to the show, man. But yeah, everything you say, I agree with that. What you just said a minute ago, brother, I agree with you 1,000,000%. Needs drive behaviors. I want to be mindful of your time. I got so much to share with you, man. But I want to be mindful of your time. But needs drive behaviors. How many more minutes you got? I want to be mindful of your time.
15 more minutes.
15 more minutes. All right. So let's look at this real quick. Needs drive behaviors. That was classic with Dr. William Glasser. And sexist marriages, Jeff, are real. Let's break this thing down, brother. Let's check this out.
Just a powerful assessment on the power of choice and living in the now. Modern women and feminism have no power over you. You can create your own reality. With these core tenets associated, listen to this. Power, or a sense of self-worth and achievement.
So let me get this straight. If a woman steps out in her relationship because she's not getting her emotional needs met, it's his fault. And if he steps out because he's not getting his sexual needs met, then it's still his fault. Can someone make that make sense? The way that so many women will rationalize their behavior, and it's not like that because she wasn't getting her needs met, but because a man needs his needs met sexually, it's different. And I don't condone cheating at any point, but is it really a man's fault if he steps out in a relationship after he's gone years and years without any kind of intimacy? And I'm not just talking sex. I'm talking about hand holding, a back rub, being emotionally connected somebody that wants to step up and take care of him. He is grinding every single day. He's trying to show up with flowers. He's trying to plan the dates. He's trying to bring back romance. But all of a sudden she's checked out, and yet that's still his fault. And this is just another perfect example of how women will use equality where it benefits them, because if you really wanted to be equal, then his needs would also be equally as important to yours, but they never are. In a relationship, if the woman's needs are not being met, then it's grounds for divorce. But if a man's needs are not being met, then it's no big deal, and he has to suck it up and deal.
Needs drive behaviors, Jeff. This is my homie, man. That's funny. I was just talking about. I would send him your information, Ty, Jeff. I'll send you Ty's information, Jeff, in an email. But he said the universe is funny. I just woke up from a nap and seen your message right when you were talking about me. So that's free advertising, man. So make sure you send me a cash out. Make sure you send Jeff a cash out or a super chat, man, because y'all niggas want free advertisement. So make sure you send Jeff a cash out and make sure you send me a cash out. Don't forget now, because I know you're from Brooklyn. You got that swag, man. So make sure you send me a cash out. But what do you think about what she just said, Jeff? What do you think about that, brother?
She is saying out loud the thing that most men are scared or feel that they're not allowed to say publicly, which is that there's two different standards of what we're holding men and women to in dating and relationships and even in workplaces. My issue, and kind of you alluded to it, and I'm going to connect Marxism to this. Mm-hmm. Marxism, from an economic standpoint, separates people into two primary classes: those who are the oppressed and those who are the oppressors, right? So the problem with viewing things in that way is that when you try to apply it to culture on a societal, cultural level, and it goes beyond just the economic distinctions. And now you're saying, so in this dynamic between the genders, who's typically going to be seen and interpreted and viewed through the lens as being an oppressor, and who's going to always be seen as the oppressed? Well, the result's going to be that if men are always seen as the oppressors and women are always seen as the oppressed, the end result's going to be that the group who is internalized and sees themselves as constantly the oppressed, living within the patriarchy, and then the group who's now within the patriarchy that's considered part of the oppressed class, the end result's going to be that whenever there's negative interactions happening, publicly, socially, even in relationships, the oppressed is never seen as guilty. It's always the male who's seen as the oppressed and is therefore the one that takes the fault and the blame in every situation. So even when she's caught red-handed lying, doing something she's not supposed to do, the Marxist cultural lens that feminists have adopted is one in which by default, it's still going to be his fault, because at the end of the day, she's the oppressed and he's the one with the leverage, power, and authority. And therefore, in a patriarchal system, he's the oppressed. So therefore, if the marriage doesn't work, it's his fault. She's unhappy, it's his fault. She steps out, it's his fault. She wants to move on with her relationship, not because she wants to go against her oath or because she found something better. It's because of something he's not doing. That's the lens of how they see things. So now when you now take a cultural Marxist view and you apply it to all of society, and particularly as it relates to boys and girls and men and women, now in any and all circumstances, this is how you end up with believe all women. This is how he's guilty until proven innocent. This is how you get to happy wife, happy life, because you've taken the Marxist tenet, the basic foundation of oppressed versus oppressor, and you've applied it to gender dynamics, intersexual gender dynamics. And now somebody always has to be oppressed and somebody always has to be the oppressed. Someone always has to be the victim and somebody's always being the cause for the victimization. So it's a very easy concept. So now every time you're listening to women, you can very easily, very early identify where they are in this spectrum of seeing us as equals, as seeing men as being the oppressors, as being fairly balanced, versus men are always wrong and women are always right.
That's very true, man. What cases, Jeff, have you seen as sexist marriages in your field of practice, and how do the women respond when you try to recalibrate their irrational behaviors? Because you're correct, a lot of it is tied to the Marxist paradigm is actually tied to paranoid persecution. It's very irrational, or the word that I created called schema afflictions. It's tied to that. But how many actually autocorrect, Jeff, when you come up with interventions around changing, giving men what they want in the confines of sex? Because I think it's abuse, Jeff, to be in a marriage that when you vow to love your husband, and I actually use like a paradoxical directive a couple of times in couples counseling, and what I told him, I said, okay, this like she expects him to be a provider, protector, XYZ. Then I flipped it and said, okay, since she don't believe, because a lot of women jump from marriage, they say, well, it's my body, and I don't feel like, I mean, are you serious? If you don't want to be married, then just stay single. You know, this man decided to make you his wife, and they use that moniker, it's my body, so I don't feel like I have to give a man my body. But how would you reverse that, Jeff, when it comes down to, how would you reverse it when it comes, well, anyway, so how do you circumnavigate that dangerous maze to get women to see their cognitive distortions or ego defense mechanisms? How do you circumnavigate that dangerous maze?
I start with validating what her needs are that she feels isn't being met.
Right.
So if she says she's unhappy, I find out what it is that she's unhappy about, what it is that she feels would be necessary and needed for her to feel better, and acknowledge it, validate it, and then say, okay, let's flip it. So now it sounds like, you know, there's a whole hierarchy or list of things that you felt he's dropped the ball on, he's not doing anymore, and things he used to do, he's not doing anymore. And when he who started off this way is now doing 10% of what he used to do, he used to be very romantic and now he's not. He used to be very thoughtful and now he's not. All the things that I can list off, or she's listing off to me, we can put it out on the table and say, wow, how has that made you feel? And she says, I feel like a shell of myself. I feel unloved. I feel unvalidated. I don't even know that he even cares about me anymore, because that was what I believed. I believed him when he used to do these things. And now he's claiming he still loves me, but he doesn't do these things anymore. And I'm like, wow. So the things he used to do, especially when y'all were dating, him dropping the ball in all of those categories has left you with the resulting of feeling like he's not showing up as a man, as a protector, as a husband, as an adequate partner. Would you agree with that? Yeah. And then I look over to him and say, wow, man, you're really effing up. You really dropping the ball. Wow. What is it about all these things that you used to do that you're not doing anymore? And now as she's feeling validated and heard and like, yeah, that's why I'm feeling this way, because he's not doing all these things. And I say, wow, man, what's the things that she used to do that let you know that she really loved you and cared about you? And then all of a sudden the wheels start turning.
Right. Very true. I do the same thing. Yes, sir. I agree.
Such a great narrative.
I totally agree, brother. That's so true.
Why you feel the way you do about him.
Right.
To where it's like, well, now that it's your time to listen. And you're like, wow. So it turns out both of y'all used to do certain things, and because of time, kids, work, and other, it seems like y'all haven't really made each other a priority anymore. You know what? You got 5 things, you got 4 things. Let's pick 1 or 2 of these things. And rather than waiting to see if we gonna feel like doing it, let's just do it. And then there's a little pushback, and I say, well, when you go to the gym and you ain't been in the gym for the last 6 months to 6 years, I assume when you first start, you hate it, right? But what happens if you keep going even when you don't want to go?
Right.
You start feeling better. You start sleeping better. You start handling your stress a little bit better. Your metabolism starts improving. You'll start getting the benefits just by doing versus waiting until you feel like doing it. Right. I said both of y'all have been being led by your feelings and emotions in this moment, which has led you to inactivity. The boat's on fire or the ship is sinking, and both of y'all are sitting on your hands waiting for the other party to get up to do something about it.
Right.
I would highly suggest that rather than waiting for you to get motivated to go to the gym, just go, start, and within 2 to 3 weeks, you'll build up a routine. And before you know it, your mind, your body, and your whole being will adjust to that being a part of your routine. It's the same concept with doing the things that you're supposed to do. Women will say, because I don't feel like something or because I'm not happy, I don't have to show up, and he has to keep doing what he's supposed to do.
Right.
In a matter of time before he starts to follow and do the same exact thing.
Right.
My challenge is a lot of times when you say your background's cognitive behavior therapy, a lot of people put so much time into the work of trying to change the mindset, change the thought patterns, that a lot of times if you just do what I tell you to do for the next 7 days, just do it. I don't want you to ask about it. I don't want you to just do these 3 things. And it's in the 80 to 90% of positive reports I've gotten from those that just followed the directions and just did said thing, even if they disagreed, even if they wasn't happy, they just did it. Shocking that when it came to your kids, you didn't not cook meals and get your kids ready for school and for their day because you didn't feel like it. You didn't show up to work because you didn't feel like it. In every other area of your life, you show up and keep going even when you don't feel like doing it.
You don't feel like it, right?
In marriage, you take shortcuts.
Right.
What I be challenging them with is the opposite. How about with the list of things he just listed off, the list of things that you just listed off, he's going to do 2 of these things throughout the week. He's not going to do it perfectly. He may not even do it happily, but he's going to do it. He's going to watch Love Island when he don't want to watch it with you. He's going to watch his stupid reality TV shows with you. You may watch some sports with him. And before you know it, it's shocking how our mood and our emotions and our thoughts start to align with our behaviors. A lot of people will get led by their feelings up out of the relationship. And for the ladies specifically, you're getting tricked out of your spot by social media, your girlfriends, and your emotions. And the same women that's telling you to leave will gladly take your spot. It's hard out here in these streets. So and the last thing I do is I tell these ladies, especially if it's a man that I believe can easily replace her and other women will take her spot, I let her know, like, wait a minute. You 43 years old, you don't want no more kids, you can't have no more kids, and you leaving a man that makes this and does this and looks like that? Okay, how many men do you think are actually out here that's going to sign up for you when they can get a younger, fitter, more feminine version of you?
Right.
If he can get those things, why would he choose you over a woman that's 10 years younger than you?
Right.
So I'll say these things out loud, which is shocking to both parties, but I'm also giving them leadership and direction about how to, for the next week, let's focus less on processing, let's focus less on how we got here, and let's start with what we have control over, our behaviors. Mm-hmm. Next week, we'll circle back and check in about how you felt about it. What was the response? What was it that you think drove you to not want to do these things in the first place? And then we can work on that stuff. But if we're spending too much time on processing, which is what a lot of therapists do, that's how they lose the guy. And that's how she loses her relationship or marriage.
Mm. Yeah. And you know what? And what I've learned, Jeff, with some, I've used those practical applications. Sometimes it works. Many times it don't. It's rare that you'll see ones actually take that. I want you to listen to this real quick before you go, and then tell me what you do.
Therapists explain in less than 4 minutes why modern women Black struggle with taking accountability, and more than average lack the emotional intelligence or the maturity to make the proper choices in dating and other relationships. And due to the lack of safeguards in place, many men that are traditional and masculine are exercising their options by being silent and checking out.
I began to really think deeply about this idea, and one of the things that came across my mind is in the last 9 months or so of me being in my private practice, I have myself experienced many women, whether they came in as a couple or they came by themselves, they very abruptly discontinued their therapy. And I started to reflect and really think, what was going on here? And I noticed that after I had to confront them about something, I had to bring to their attention something they were doing that wasn't contributing to the health of the relationship, they became very defensive and very, just very harsh, and they stopped coming. And
no one can hold Black women accountable. Black women, unfortunately, we have adopted this mentality that I can do whatever I want to do and can't nobody tell me anything. And this is why we are where we're at. We live in a very selfish, egotistical society now that nobody cares. If you're a Black woman and to hold Black women accountable, you have to be ready to fight, because it's going to come with a lot. I'm always thinking about how young girls are being influenced. So what us grown women are doing is influencing these girls to do these out of control, I don't care attitudes. They have the most disgusting attitudes, and you can't even check them because they have their moms who say I could do whatever I want. So can't no one hold us accountable. Not a Black man. Your white boss probably, that's probably the only one who can tell us what to do because he pay us. A gay man can tell us what to do. If it's a Black woman or a Black man, a straight Black man, we don't want to hear it.
If you want to piss a Black woman off, just tell her the truth. I promise you she'll get mad. And that might sound crazy. Who would get mad at the truth? How can you argue with the truth? Black women. It is our kryptonite. It is like diarrhea to the mouth. It's like diarrhea to the soul. We have this disdain thing when it comes to the truth.
That I can't cover everything at once or we would be here all day, but I also see women as more disordered than men. It's not just what I think, it's not just what I see by using my 2 eyes, my 2 ears, and some common sense, but it's also in the statistics, and we have to talk about that. So when I say that women are more disordered than others, it's not a perception, it's a reality, it's a fact.
What do you think about what you just heard, brother? Because I think there's a lot of truth to that. And shout out to my man, The Wall Report, as he's the #1 sponsor of the stream for the $34 cash out. Shout out to my man, The Wall Report, for the $34. We're going to read these super chats in a minute. But Jeff, I know you got to go, brother. I love the conversation. But what do you think about what those women said, man? And listen, let's set something up in the future, man. I would love to come on your platform, man. And chop it up with you, man, and do a show or some shows in the future. And I'll tell you, I'll give Ty your information. I will give you Ty's information in the background. I'll text it to you. I'll give you a call, all right? But what do you think about what those ladies said, brother?
Two things. One, if you could display my name under me, that helps.
Yes, sir. Actually, you can do it. Just go to edit in the system. You can do it. Hold tight.
Edit, yeah.
Yeah, go to the edit and just do it. You can do it, and you just put your name in and.
Yeah, it's. I already have it typed in. It's just not shown on the screen for some reason.
Okay, hold on. Yeah, all right, I don't know why it's not showing. Hold tight. I think I know what it is. Hold tight. I think it's all right. There we go.
Yeah, there you go. All right. So, in terms of, funny enough, the first woman that you had on there, me and her are going to be actually doing an episode together pretty soon about these very issues and topics.
Okay, cool.
But overall, yeah. In fact, before I react, because they all touched on it a little bit, but they all had different points. What would you say is your specific question that you think I should respond to?
All right. So this, you can't hold me accountable. Only God can judge me mindset that you see a lot of times from modern women in therapy. Even to the point that when other Black women talk about the pathologies that you and I see, they tend to minimize or don't want to see the irrational behaviors.
Honestly, I think we're at a point or place. And it doesn't actually matter if they're Black or not. This is actually more of a westernized.
Westernized, right. Mm-hmm.
The question is going to be not just professionally, but more even personally. Well, you're going to reward that behavior or not? I think a lot of times we get caught up in this person's upset or they're going off or they're getting disrespectful and we got to address this. You can if you want to, but in terms of the stages of change, they're clearly at the pre-contemplation stage. They're not interested in change. They don't see the need for change. They think if anyone needs to change, it needs to be you. Why are you going to put all your time, energy, and focus into okay, if someone showed you up front that they don't respect you in any other area of your life, would you spend all your waking hours and days trying to get them to respect you, or would you go to where you're tolerated, where you're respected, right? So a lot of times what we're attempting to do is we're trying to change people and make people become the versions of what we can tolerate, accept, and respect and do life with. And I'm like, sometimes we have to let people be who they are, and we reward them with our time, our energy, our focus, and our attention when it warrants it. It warrants it. So, for instance, if a client came in and they're going off cursing, they don't want to listen, I will say, well, listen, it seems like you're not interested at this time to want to take the suggestions and things that I'm suggesting. And it seems very clear that your viewpoint is everything that's wrong in your life is a result of everyone else, not you. So that's not going to be there. You can keep paying me for the next 6 months, but I'm going to let you know that if that's the mentality you're going to hold on to, you probably should go to another therapist that you think won't challenge you in these ways. Now I've sped up the process of we don't have to keep doing this dance when I clearly see where you are and what you are and aren't interested in.
Right.
Y'all trying to fight with these women and girlfriends and fight with these people to try to make them. I notice and I've seen women have no problem rejecting and leaving men on red and ghosting men that don't meet their expectations.
Very true. Very true.
So when are we going to be leaders and do the same. Why y'all think that? Y'all just think that continuing to pay for dates and paying for OnlyFans and flying them out and doing all this stuff when they can act and have attitudes and disrespect you and keep circling back after they get done dealing with 5, 6, 8 guys and then come back to you as they backup plan, and you keep rewarding them.
Yes, totally agree. Yes,
Stop
sir. Totally
rewarding the worst aspects of what's wrong in our culture, and you'll be shocked. So when women complain about how horrible the men are, but then you look at all the men where she's been with in the past, she's sleeping with all the men that she's claiming are so bad and ignoring all the men that actually would treat her right. Something's telling me you're not going to get the outcome you want as a woman,
right?
If you if you keep rewarding the very men that you're complaining about. Shocking. So on our end, we just have to do a much better job of recognizing red flags sooner, making it known what our standards are, and actually walking it out, living it out, like in real time. If she takes 2, 3, 4 days to respond to your text message, she ain't that into you.
She ain't into you, right? Or she's playing games, right?
Or playing games. She doesn't really like you like that. If she has a long, long list of things that you need to do in order to be able to go out with her, she doesn't really like you like that.
I totally agree.
If she constantly is bringing up other men and talking about all these men and well, a man in my past used to do this and that, my ex used to do that. Bro, what else do you need to see to realize like you're not that guy to her? Reward the women that like you, reward the women that make time for you, and don't reward the women that don't. Reward the women that respect you, respect your voice, respect your leadership, respect your viewpoints. The women that don't, you give less and less to, or nothing at all. And before you know it, you will build your worldview around healthy men and women who sees and recognizes your value and you see and recognize theirs. It's yeah.
I totally agree. 100%. You're correct. You got to create the reality that you want, and you're right. And that is a process, but everything you said is true. And some of the things you talk about, I've actually used it in therapy. I'll tell them the same thing you said. Well, listen, I don't think I'm the therapist for you, or it's probably perhaps you want to go to another therapist that can help you deal with whatever you're dealing with. And sometimes they stay, sometimes they don't, but you're not going to waste my time. But before I let you go, what you get out of the conversation, man? And we got to do this again. This was good, man. I felt like we got so much more I had so much more planned, man, but I want to be mindful of your time. But what you get out of the conversation, young man, and I look forward to doing this again.
I appreciate it. I think it was it's good to do this with another clinician and another male clinician who also thinks very similarly about many of the problems and things that I've observed. And it's nice to know that I'm not alone. The 14,000 people who have followed me in the last 3 weeks it's confirmation that I realize that this is something that needs to be brought to the light, and that more and more men need to do what it is that I'm doing. Actually bringing it out. And it's not about women bashing. It's about saying that there needs to be equality when it comes to the accountability, that there needs to be a standard when it comes to what's actually happening in these educational, therapeutic, counseling spaces, where a lot of times one view is held highly and the other view is not acknowledged at all. So if I'm going to be one of the whipping boys that's going to shine a light on the dark aspects of what's happening in mental health space, so be it. But if 5-10 years from now, more and more men and women are putting this out to the forefront, then I did my job. So, I appreciate this opportunity with you and many of the other people who have provided the opportunity for me to speak into these spaces and come into your platforms. I'm honored because, again, 30 days ago, I didn't know any of y'all. And now it's like all the community is that already existed is now starting to coalesce. And it's not just men that's acknowledging that this needs to change and that we need to actually strive for better actual equality in our various domains of society. It's also wives and girlfriends who are reaching out and saying, I'm now a better wife because of what you're saying. I'm a better girlfriend because of what you're saying. I didn't realize all the ways I wasn't showing up as a partner because everything was all about my happiness and not our happiness. Right. So I'm grateful. I appreciate you. I thank you. I love the work that you're doing on your end, holding it down. And I do believe that if we just re-listen to this episode and we do 50% of what we're talking about, men will have better outcomes. Women will have better options. And I think that we're going to start to reward the women and men that deserve to be rewarded.
No doubt, man. Listen, man, it was a pleasure, man. You enjoy your Sunday with your beautiful wife. And I'll be on the back end, man. We'll be chopping up on the back end. And, man, you enjoy the rest of your day, brother. You take care of yourself, man.
All right, then. Peace,
All
y'all.
right, brother. Yes, sir. Be good, brother. All right. Let me drop you down. All right, guys. That was my man, Jeff St. James in the house. That was Jeff St. James in the house. And we were talking about is woke therapy a safe space for masculine men? I'm still going to run the show a little bit. I got some more things I want to share, and I will be editing some of this with Brother Jeff at some point. But one of the things, guys, I want to talk about is that many times, because men don't get their needs met, it causes a lot of problems. And I'm going to show you guys a clip in a minute about how woke therapy is actually impacting the profession and why it's become problematic for a lot of men. But in the meantime, let me read out some of these super chats, guys, real quick. Let me read some of these super chats out real fast. Shout out to my man. Shout out to, once again, Ray Johnson for the $25 super chat. Cash out. Shout out to Mujahid for the $10 cash out. Shout out to the Wall Report for the $34.99 cash out. And also shout out to those that have giving super chat. Shout out to Hashim Shabazz for the 2. Shout out to brother Gregory Scotland for the 10. He said, salute, Coach. This should be a great show. When I heard Jeff said that he had 3 traps, it reminded me of when you put some to test to find out which one committed. Shout out to brother Greg. Shout out to Divine Photos with today's modern relationships. It seems like modern women want the highest leverage and use so-called requirements for good men they want to claim. Shout out also for Gregory Scotland again for the 10. He's a coach that's finding female content creators who question your credentials. Years ago, could not even tell us what profession she was in, no doubt. Shout out to Hashim Shabazz again for the 2. He said, excellent show, true for dialogue. Theo Wild said, yes, there's a different pool, passport. Theo Wild, again, you can change all you want. The laws remain the same. Theo said, we don't need to breed here. Women aren't worth it, not a victim mentality. It's really, it's reality. Don't quit, level up, and passport. And then Sora C said, had to support the conversation. Thank you for the stream, Coach. Yes, no doubt. And it goes back, guys, to what I've said before. I'm going to run the stream a little bit longer. And once again, shout out to Mr. St. James. But it goes back to what I said about relationships, also in the therapeutic framework that we're actually dealing with now. And here's why a lot of men are struggling. Because they're not getting their needs met. Many times they are minimized, and many times it's caused a lot of distress. Let's finish listening to this, and then I'm going to pull up the next portion of the video, and then we'll end the stream.
With it. Women will always use the argument, oh, we told him several times before we decided to get a divorce. But how did you talk to that man? Was it passive aggressive? Did you intentionally withhold sex as a punishment? Then you can't understand why that man stepped out or why that man felt comfortable enough to open up to somebody else. We talk all day long about the needs of women, but we never talk about the needs of a man. Because why is it that women's needs and their emotional capacity and all of this household labor and all of this mental load that women want to make up, we never stop to think about what about his.
Shout out to my man, Quiet Faith, always showing love for the $10 super chat. He says, encouraging to see specialists opening a dialogue concerning the current conditions of interpersonal relationships. And also shout out to Bashur Eshet by Nadia, who for the $5 super sticker. Shout out to that dear sister. Thank you, dear. I really appreciate it for the support. Thank you, ma'am.
His mental load? What about his financial stability? What about his mental stability? You guys never check in with him to wonder why he's picked up an alcohol problem or why he's staying out with the guys too late or why he doesn't feel like talking at all. Maybe that man is showing you through his actions because his words don't matter. Every time he talks, it's used against him, or every time he tries to tell you that he is missing that piece of intimacy, you throw it back in his face and you bring up something that happened 3 months ago. And he goes through this for years. So then when he steps out, because he's in a loveless, sexless relationship where he's unappreciated and all of these things, and he feels less than every single day.
And guys, this is the crazy power dynamic that I see in a lot of relationships. A lot of men suffer in silence because of these crazy power dynamics. They allow it. They become arbiters of their own pain. And many times the women don't change. And if men would say, okay, fine, if I'm not going to get intimacy, I'm going to cut back on provision. I'm going to cut back on a lot of things that you like. If men would know what their worth is, start standing on business, start holding the women accountable, then the women have no other choice but to autocorrect. But we keep expecting women to change that are not ready to change mentally. You got to be the first change agent. You got to be the one to change the laws in your mind. Shout out to Mr. Palmer.
Is he really at fault? Okay, bye.
Love and belonging, or being part of
you, and lie down.
Away half their shit. Another 10%.
And these are divorce court issues, guys. This is what we were talking about earlier. Hold tight.
Many men are staying away from marriage because overall it's not worth it until laws change and men are allowed to be sovereign in their...
Do guys that are single never want to get married again? This comment right here, marriage is for suckers.
If you break it down fundamentally, 56% of marriages end in divorce. Like, think about, that's the ones that end in divorce. So how many people, what percentage stay together for the kids? Or because they don't want to give away half their shit? Another 10%? That's conservative.
Conservative.
But let's say 20% then, okay?
That's at least right.
You now have a technology that fails 76% of the time. That's insane. That's insane. That's more likely than not. 76%. If I told you there's a 76% chance when you walk out the door today you're going to get hit in the head with a bowling ball, you would not go out, or you'd wear a helmet for sure. But people just continue to get married. Not only do they continue to get married, there's a presumption that you should get married. And if you don't get married, there's something wrong with you. So if you've got a girlfriend and you've been with her for 5 years, and you say to someone...
And here's the issue that a lot of men struggle with. You know, I like what Jeff said. You can level up, and you don't necessarily have to marry women here in the West. You can level up, you can travel abroad if you're a single man, and if you choose to marry a woman from another country, keep her in that country and do it that way. If you don't like the draconian laws in America, level up, change the laws in your mind, give her the woman that's going to meet your program, and do it that way.
We're getting married. They go, oh, that's great. You know, they don't go, why? You're happy. Why would you get married? Like, everything's going fine. Why would you put yourself through that? Why would you run that risk? If you say to someone, we've been together 5 years and we've decided we're not going to get married. We're going to move in together, but we're not going to get married. Ooh, what's wrong? You have intimacy issues? What's your problem? Meanwhile, 56% end in divorce. It's literally fits the legal definition of negligence.
Fun, which includes a sense of satisfaction or pleasure. Dating in the past used to be fun and beneficial to the man and the woman. But recently, with the rise of narcissism and average men, getting rejected from average women, and hedonism, many men see dating as a waste of time and money.
I'm a licensed plumber.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
And now, what do you look for in a woman?
I look for a woman that's not promiscuous and has a career going for herself.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
And now, what are some of your deal breakers?
Deal breaker, being promiscuous, not cleanly, don't have a career, nothing really going for yourself.
Okay. All right. So we did get a pop balloon. Let's go ahead and go on over there and see what's going on.
Yes.
All right. If we can have your name and age. And
for me, it just did not work. I didn't feel like I had chemistry or I wasn't fully attracted to you. And I feel like that counts if we are going to be going through a dating show, you know?
Yes, the feeling is definitely mutual. So that's okay. Yeah. Thank you. You did me a favor.
You know?
And so, guys, this was the whole fiasco with Aaron the plumber that became an internet sensation. The plumber turned aka Mr. Crash Out. You see, because of the excessive levels of narcissism, every time men have needs, men have demands, men have wants, there's always a problem. Do you see the paradox? She can state her position and what she wants, but when the men say, oh, you don't meet my standards and you did me a favor, then all of a sudden she projects to the man the same thing that she is. Shout out to my man, the International Quiet Storm, for that $10 super chat. Great interview. I appreciate it, brother. Thank you, sir, the International Quiet Storm. Thank you, brother.
In society is just horrible. The new texting is getting to know you. People easily can move on to somebody else with a quick sliding in their DMs or getting on a dating app. Sleeping with other people is so much easier than working hard for it. People don't want to make effort anymore. We don't set up dates. We ask you, Where do you want to go eat? What are you craving? Nah, man. Back in the days, you'd have to make effort. The 80s and 90s love is so much different. You had to actually talk to them. You had to call them. We didn't have...
And God, that's the generation that I grew up in. That's the generation that I grew up in. That's what I remember until men or men who had standards were accused of something nonsensical as toxic masculinity. That's the generation I grew up in.
FaceTime. We'd meet up for coffee. We would get to know each other and we build a future together. Today's society is, hey, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? And then you get ghosted, or you get used and then they find somebody else. No one cares about your feelings anymore. This society of dating is crap. It literally makes me sick to my stomach. And to be honest with you, I'd rather stay single until I find that old school love. I'm nobody's temporary. I'm someone's forever.
And that goes back to what Jeff was saying. It's about leveling up, not necessarily for the woman, but leveling up for yourself. That goes back to the kosher king mindset that we talked about a lot of times. And I agree with that fundamentally. I don't think men should marry the typical woman in the West. I don't think men should settle for the average American woman, because most don't qualify to be wise. Most haven't been taught to be wise, and most don't want to be a wife. And so I would seriously suggest that men travel abroad, expand and explore their options, and get with women to meet their standards. But you have to do the work. And doing the work, guys, is having a non-diagnostic consultation. That's part of doing the work. I'm going to start doing more of that. It's not free. I'm a licensed profession, and just like Jeff said, Jeff charges for his time. He charges for his consultations. Just like many other content creators, they charge for the consultation. But some of you guys won't help, but you don't want to pay for it. And so I'm not going to be giving out free services or free content. I'm not doing that. I work too hard to get where I've gotten at. If you like what I'm doing, like the work that I bring, you will support me and support where I'm at. And so I totally agree with that young man 100%. That's how men start moving. But yeah, the Quiet Storm is correct. He said they dog Aaron the plumber, ended up being a media sensation. Whether you agree with his antics or disagree with his antics is a reoccurring theme for men who are tossed aside like yesterday laundry, but then become successful. And thank you to that dear brother for being a member for 19 months. I'm gonna show you guys something real quick. Let me remove this real fast, and we're gonna end the stream in a minute. But I'm gonna show you guys something about this wokeism in therapy and how being woke is the new phenomenon, sadly, in therapy. And so this woman's a woke psychologist.
Martin Luther King's.
Hold tight. And she's talking about critical race theory. She's talking about critical race theory, but this proves the point about how, sadly, in modern therapeutic circles, they've been trained to see things, sadly, through the lens of wokeness and also through the lens of cultural Marxism. So I'm going to play this real quick. We'll break this clip down and then we'll end the stream. All right?
Ideal of colour blindness, of treating everyone the same, irrespective of their skin colour, is now considered outdated by this particular clinic, by the NHS. Isn't that frightening?
It is frightening, Andrew. And my Freedom of Information survey that I did of UK clinical psychology courses a couple of years ago showed that this worldview has been adopted. It's widespread in clinical training programs and in the NHS more generally. And so it's a real concern that the future generation of therapists are being trained to see the world through identity politics.
Now, how would that important new documentary premiere?
So think about what she just said, and what she said is true. Whether you agree with critical race theory or any other thing, clinical therapists now, and I've said before in the past, they see things through what, like Gregory Scotland said earlier, the Duluth model, or what's called the feminist theory lens. The Duluth model or the feminist theory lens. Intersection of politics, gender dynamics, so-called misogyny. They see things through that nefarious lens. It's a so-called patriarchy that black men never had. And so they see it through the lens of empowering women through different avenues and more or less silencing this imaginary patriarchy that never existed because black men never had power to the same level as white men. And even average white men have never had power like some of the more power elites. But this is true. And that's why it's not that therapy, guys, itself is not powerful. Therapy can be very powerful, but there's a science to therapy, and then there's the dissemination of how you break that therapy down. You got the science of therapy, and then you got the art and the dissemination of that said therapy.
Last week, part of the New Culture Forum Heresies series. It's called Trans, Racist and Woke, How Psychology Went Mad. Let's take a look.
More and more of us are looking out at our culture and society and feel like we are observing a psychiatric ward. Male rapists in women's prisons, racial segregation in schools.
Think about that, guys. Rapists in women's prisons. Rapists in women's prison, all under the umbrella of wokeness. And all under the umbrella of anything that's masculine is toxic. That's why a lot of my male clients now are men. They want male therapists like myself that are traditional conservative therapists. Not necessarily saying I'm a Republican, because I'm not. But I believe in traditional, old school archetypal therapy compared to the therapy that we have now. And this is what the issue is now. It's under woke therapy and Marxist ideologies.
The censorship of books and the rewriting of history. The world's gone mad, many of us cry.
But do we even know what madness is anymore? Have our mental health professionals got our best interests at heart? Is sanity still the goal? Or, instead, has the psychiatric profession become a battleground for warring versions of reality, with the patient sacrificed and made a casualty of the cause?
Now, that film was written and presented by Amy Gallagher, who joins me now. I'm also joined by Dr. Carol Sherwood, who is about to launch her Save Mental Health campaign. Welcome to Amy and Carol. Amy, I want to start with you. You presented this film, you wrote this film, but you have an interesting backstory. Now, you have been on this show to explain it, but perhaps you could explain it again. You were training as a psychotherapist.
Yes, I'm a mental health nurse, and I was training as a psychotherapist at the Tavistock.
Now I want you guys to listen to her story. Listen to this censorship that she's been through. I've been through it to some degree. If you don't get on with the woke train and the current woke paradigm, they will censor you or more or less block your opportunities to practice as a therapist. And I think if you really say you believe in the right to self-determination for clients, how can you limit the right to self-determination when it comes down to fellow clinicians to have a different worldview? You can't talk about equality and equity and tolerance on one end, but yet you punish those that have a worldview that's different than yours. That's highly problematic in my opinion.
Stock and Portman, I was in my final years of training as a psychotherapist, and essentially what I saw was that they were teaching critical race theory as if it was a fact. So they sent around a lecture titled Whiteness from a Problem of Our Time, and in it they made lots of generalisations about people based on their skin colour. So I disagreed with this, and I said that there needed to be an alternative opinion. And what followed I could never have predicted, but it was like 2 years of bullying, victimisation, telling me that I'd been inappropriate, that I shouldn't enter the profession, and eventually they stopped me from my clinical work, so I'm still kind of essentially cancelled from the profession.
That's quite astonishing. I mean, so they were at one point, correct me if I'm wrong, but they were effectively saying that unless you as a white person admit that you are racist, you can't be a psychotherapist.
Well, they're essentially saying that you can't disagree with critical race theory, which is what you've described. So I was advocating for the colourblind approach to race, which is that not judging a person by the colour of their skin and treating everyone equally. And they said that that was discredited and outdated and that I needed to be on board with their ideas. And what ensued was just essentially repeatedly telling me that I'd caused trauma, that I was inappropriate, that I shouldn't enter the profession, and now I'm having to bring about a lawsuit against them just to protect my beliefs in the colourblind approach.
Think about what she got to go through. Listen to what this woman is saying. All because she don't see things through a woke therapy or a woke worldview. Where's the equity at? Where's the intolerance at? Where's the civility at? This woman has to deal with the trauma of that, and that's consistent with the thumbnail, toxic masculinity, get woke, or how modern therapy doesn't benefit masculine men, but also traditional women as well, or women just have an alternative worldview. One of the things that women get mad at with feminists is that feminists say women have the right to choose, but when women say, I want to stay home and raise my kids and be a traditional woman, then those women are shamed for not having a worldview consistent with feminists. And a lot of folks have a problem with that.
Essentially.
So, Dr. Carol Sherwood, can I ask you about that? Because the idea that Martin Luther King's ideal of colourblindness, of treating everyone the same, irrespective of their skin colour, is now considered outdated by this particular clinic, by the NHS. Isn't that frightening?
It is frightening, Andrew. And my Freedom of Information survey that I did of UK clinical psychology courses a couple of years ago showed that this worldview has been adopted. It's widespread in clinical training programs and in the NHS more generally. And so it's a real concern that the future generation of therapists are being trained to see the world through identity politics.
Now, how would that affect a patient if they're talking about privilege and obsessing about privilege, and a patient is white, and they encourage them to focus on that when they're suffering from all these other forms of trauma? That's getting it entirely backwards, isn't it?
It is, and it's completely unethical. But this is what is going to happen. We know this because it's actually happening in the States.
Yes.
So you will be a straight white man going for help. Perhaps you're really depressed and anxious about losing your job. And what you will be told is, well, what can you expect? You are a straight white man. You are at the root of your own problems. You're patriarchal and you're a racist. How is that ethical?
I mean, this is unbelievable. So, I mean, the idea that it's so deeply embedded that they're going to promote this divisive idea within the NHS, I just think is absolutely shocking. What is their defence for this, Amy? What are they suggesting? What's their side of the story?
Well, as I explore in the documentary, what happened many years ago was that there was a fusion of psychoanalytic ideas with critical theory, which is a Marxist project. So what we've seen is that there's been a politicization of psychology in general.
Man, we got a heavy hitter in the house. We got a heavy hitter in the house. He said, I'm on mission next time you come to the West Coast, bro. Glad you and the fellow therapist brother got a chance to link up supporting black male media. Man, shout out to my brother, the International Quiet Storm. Yeah, man, I was thinking about your Quiet Storm, man. I was in Southern California. I was in Mission Valley, Vallejo. Man. I was in the Laguna Beach. I got up with the homie, King Saul. Him and I chopped it up. But yeah, I was in Mission Valley, Vallejo. I love California, man. California is beautiful, man. And it was a pleasure to see my man Saul. Shout out to him. Also, shout out to him for being generous with his time and treating me out to dinner, me and my wife. I really appreciate that. But yeah, man, I thought about you, man. I said, man, I got to see my boy Quiet Storm, man, while I'm out here on the West Coast, man. But it was an awesome trip. And shout out to the International Quiet Storm, as he's the #1 sponsor of the stream, man. I really appreciate it, brother. That means the world to me. Shout out to the International Quiet Storm, as he is the #1 sponsor of this stream. Shout out to the International Quiet Storm, man. Listen, when I come back to Cali again, man, we're going to chop it up, man. We'll make it happen, man. I appreciate the love and support, brother. Thank you, sir.
They really believe this. They believe that the answer to all of our problems is a kind of a communist revolution. That they're true believers in that sense, and there's no arguing with them otherwise. So they believe in things like unconscious bias. If you would disagree, for example, I disagreed with the concept of white privilege. So they would argue that I'm disagreeing because of a psychological defence mechanism that means that I don't want to admit my own racism. That's the kind of argument that we see with people like Robin DiAngelo or critical social justice psychologists or psychotherapists. That if you disagree with an idea, it's not because you
Which is brainwashing, by the way. It's a form of brainwash. We call that social jamming. They're trying to brainwash her to think that she's crazy.
thought about it rationally and logically and you've looked at the evidence and you've come to a conclusion, it's because your unconscious doesn't want to admit certain things. So what we're seeing is a weaponization of psychology and psychological concepts more broadly for political gain, essentially. That's how I see it.
And Carol, I mean, the way that's been outlined is absolutely chilling, because we see this now in all areas of life where you are expected to be politically in lockstep to whatever the authority figures within any given institution believe. What happened to diversity? What happened to living in a plural society, in a liberal society?
Exactly. And what we're finding, certainly with training courses, is that the trainees are expected to conform to this worldview. If any of them try to speak up, they're silenced, they're told they have privilege and they must shut up. And so they're not actually getting a proper training. They're actually downgrading expertise. They're told we are going to be non-experts. Lived experience of mental health is considered more important a quality to have in order to work with people with mental health problems than having expertise. Well, you wouldn't want to go and see a surgeon.
Almost like I want you to nullify your values, nullify your worldview, and follow this woke Marxist ideology and inculcate that into the therapeutic framework. And it's a problem, guys, because what it does, it undermines the thing that our profession talks about the most is the right to self-determination, and that's more or less for the clients. And I know we're not clients as clinicians, but how about the right to self-determination, the right to self-sustainability for the therapist? And that's, like I said, that's equally a problem.
Would you, who actually said to you, well, actually, I don't aim to be an expert. It has consequences.
It's an equivalent, isn't it? Absolutely.
It is.
So Amy, you thought of making this documentary, and how did this come about?
Yeah, so I did an interview with New Cultural Forum about what happened to me in my legal case over a year ago now, and I've sort of been involved with them going forward, and they offered me the chance to do a documentary. I guess what I wanted to pose as a question was how, in the last 10 years, we've seen more and more increasing conversations about mental health. We see a kind of therapy speak dominating our culture. We're always talking about psychological concepts and so on, and yet we don't seem to be getting happier. And if anything, our society seems to be getting a bit madder. I mean, we're seeing, in terms of free speech, which is something I know you care about strongly, we're seeing kind of weaponization of psychology where if you disagree with someone, you will be told that you've caused them trauma, or they need a safe space for psychological harm,
right,
or they need trigger warnings to prevent themselves from experiencing psychological harm. This goes against the ethics of, and all the evidence of psychology, which would teach resilience, that you need to expose yourself to different ideas and different, things that you're scared of in order to strengthen yourself.
So this is fundamentally anti-scientific.
It's anti-scientific, anti-therapeutic. And as I say in the documentary, what's happened is there's been an increasing amount of ideology entering into psychology. There's a history to that, but we've seen it most sharply with the medical scandal happening at the Tavistock.
Yes.
Which, people are saying, we've got all this awareness of mental health, how could this happen? And my documentary tries to explain that, essentially.
I understand. Now, Carol, so you're starting your own campaign. This is your Save Mental Health campaign, which is obviously related to these issues. Can you tell us just a little bit more about that?
Yes, indeed. It's an alliance of psychologists and psychotherapists, researchers and academics, and we're all sharing our concern about the madness that we're seeing in our professions, and we want to actually restore some sanity to mental health care. And so we want to actually make public our concerns. We have some really troubling stories of what is happening in the professions, so we want to make those public. We also want to put pressure on government, on politicians. We're actually working with the Free Speech Union because we're concerned about the effects of cancel culture on people's mental health. And so they're hoping that we can do some research with them.
Now think about, guys, the culture or the therapy that's supposed to be freeing people from mental distress. It's actually causing mental distress because the people that they're trying to indoctrinate don't adhere to their expectations and or their ideologies. That's a problem. But that's what's happening in many circles in the therapeutic world. That's why a lot of black men don't go to therapy. Therapy is very powerful if a person understands the science, understands the art, and I know how to more or less disseminate it properly. I'll give you guys an example. CBT has been known to be highly efficacious or effective, but they've had scholarly articles that state that many times, even though it is effective, people don't know how to disseminate it. That's the science. That's the art. The science is great, but the art is not always carried out in therapeutic sessions, and therefore it doesn't always benefit other non-European communities.
About that.
Fantastic. Well, where can people find out more about this?
Go to our website, which is Save Mental Health UK. And if you are on X and you want to follow us on X, we're at SaveMHUK.
Thank you very much. And Amy, very finally, could you just tell us, where can we see your documentary?
So my documentary is on YouTube. It's called Trans, Racist and Woke, How Psychology Went Mad. It's with New Cultural Forum. And you can find out more about my legal case at GoFundMe /StandUpToWoke.
But if they go to the New Culture Forum website on YouTube, it'll be right there for them to see.
Yep, that's right, yep.
Fantastic. Amy and Carol, thank you both so much.
All right, guys, that's it. And once again, guys, we're going to end it in a minute, guys. All those all sound blare. Okay, I'm sorry, whatever. I apologize for that. He said sounds blare. Yeah, I got to get that game fixed. I apologize for that. I don't know what's going on. He said the audio is off. Sounds blaring. Yeah. Yeah, I got to get, let me turn this thing off, man. But we're going to end the stream anyway. But anyway, guys, what did y'all get from the conversation? And what I'm going to start doing, guys, I'm going to start having live panels like I used to do in the past, where we had intellectual conversations. I'm going to start having panels, might even start having male-female panels where you have man on one side, female on one side, and we talk about relationship dynamics, and I act more or less as an arbitrator, or more or less have a conversation where men and women are talking about what their grievances are, their differences are, or even have a panel where men can talk about any traumas that they have, and we just have a conversation. But anyway, I appreciate you guys tuning in. Thank you guys once again. Thank you to all the guys to show love and support. And once again, shout out to the International Quiet Storm, as he was the #1 sponsor of the stream. And like I said, brother, the next time I hit the West Coast, man, I definitely be tapping in with you, man, and we'll be chopping it up. But anyway, guys, we're going to end it here. Thank you to Brother Jeff St. James and everybody that tuned in. Guys, if you like what I'm doing, share this stream. Share this stream with several people. If you want more content, I'm talking about therapeutic issues with Jeff St. James, let me know, and I'll try to bring them back. But this time I'll let you guys pay for it if you want to bring them back, because this time it's not free, and I did pay him. I don't mind paying him. He's an excellent young man. I like his work. And so we will continue this conversation, guys, at some point in some time. I will see you guys soon. And once again, thank you to everybody that showed love and support. And guys, we're going to be signing off. I'm going to enjoy the rest of my day, get my walk in, and I will see you guys soon. It's often been said that art imitates life. And when art imitates life, it asks us the question, why are we seeing the things that we're beginning to see? In this show of The Kosher Clinician, we will be exploring the dark triad and the dark triad personality traits that are often seen in modern women. We will be exploring Machiavellianism, psychopathy, and also narcissism, as those three traits appear to be prevalent in modern times. We're going to explore the definitions associated with those three variables, but also we're going to be exploring some of the celebrities that could or more or less appear to have some of those traits. As I said earlier on this stream with Art Imitate Life, it appears that later in the past that some of the women that we're going to be talking about, like Meg Thee Stallion, Monique, and Jada Pinkett, is a reflection of modern women. Did you guys know that the vibrations that other people send out as signals can more or less be impacted inside the psyche of a man through subliminal cues, or also through the subconscious? We're going to explore how the Medusa complex, a term that I created, defies or more or less explains some of the behaviors associated with modern women, as many modern women appear to have the Medusa complex. The Medusa complex is a complex that often leaves many women petrified when they look within the mirror. They can't see themselves because if they saw what they really are, then they will actually crack under pressure. And many would say that the Medusa complex is a byproduct of a condition called cognitive dissonance. But that's not the topic of the show. The topic of the show is to explore why many appear to have the Medusa complex. And could it be that the Medusa complex is a byproduct of the dark triad, which in essence includes Machiavellianism, psychopathy, and narcissism? Sit back, relax, and enjoy this show as I bring it to you live from the greatest state in the union, the Tar Heel State. And I need you men to remember this as we seek to bring balance to the union as it relates to relationships in modern times. If it ain't 7, it ain't kosher. If it ain't kosher, it ain't right. Have you been a victim of the dark triad forces that more or less have invaded your life? Have you been a victim of modern women that seek not only to understand your needs as men, but more or less aggrandize their needs at the behest of yours? Enjoy this show, support the show, share the stream, and let's get this show popping. Be well. Fire! Kosher Clinician. That's how I become the Kosher Clinician. The story and the war cry behind the Kosher Clinician was similar to some of the struggles and the things I have been through as a man. And some of you men are still going through that right now. There's a philosophical term called an existentialist crisis. Basically what that means is that you begin to ask yourself the question, why am I existing? What is the purpose of my existence? And I think that's been the story of a lot of men that have not been more or less raised or under the tutelage of masculine men. One of the greatest indictments, guys, about the manosphere is that people assert and assume that the manosphere preaches misogyny and hate. But the manosphere is not a responsible and well-created asylum as the front to women or black women. But the man still was a response to the pain and suffering that everybody in walk on through and continue to go through as we speak now. Once again, gentlemen, we are going through our existential crisis. Our country is in trouble. Some of you are in trouble mentally, physically, and emotionally. And you're not ready to move to higher ground until you get the requisite help that's going to help you become the better version of yourself.
Real men put the strap down and we can toss them. This is our culture. Now we talking kosher. Clinician.
All right. There it is. All right. Now hit it for me.
And it ain't culture. 7 in hell is what they taught you. We'll put them, and you can back up in young dose. Kosher. Clinician.
All right, stop that. All I want you to say is, if it ain't 7, it ain't kosher. Say that first, okay? All right, you ready?
Start over?
Yeah, start it.
No. Okay, if it ain't 7, it ain't culture, and...
If it ain't 7, it ain't culture.
Okay.
Heaven and hell is what they taught you.
Okay, perfect. Do that again, but give me a little attitude. If it ain't 7, it ain't culture.
All right.
Okay, you ready?
Mm-hmm.
And action.
Young heads picking back up in young dolphin. This is our culture. Now we talking kosher. Clinician. That was cool.
If it ain't 7, it ain't culture. Heaven and hell, that's what they taught you. Real men put the strap down and we can toss them. Young heads picking back up in young dolphins. This is our culture. Now we talking kosher. Clinician, masculinity issues, absent fathers who miss you, mama drama no kiss you, all a part of the ritual. This is how they get you. Separate the men, women clipping babies pretend to. Damn, lovers, haters acting like vultures. If it ain't 7, it ain't kosher. If it ain't kosher, ain't right, gotta divorce us. If it ain't 7, it ain't kosher. If it ain't kosher, ain't right, gotta divorce us. If it ain't 7, it ain't kosher. If it ain't kosher, ain't right, gotta divorce us. This is kosher condition. 7 wonders, the whole world gotta listen. This is kosher condition. 7 wonders, the whole world gotta listen. This is kosher condition. 7 wonders, the whole world gotta listen. This is kosher condition. 7 wonders, the whole world gotta listen. Listen. Listen.